The Franklin Expedition's final message. Imagine standing on the frozen shore of King William Island, where the Arctic wind carries whispers of the past across a landscape that has remained unchanged for centuries. The ice beneath your feet holds secrets that have puzzled historians and scientists for over 170 years. Here, in this desolate expanse of the Canadian Arctic, lies one of maritime history's most haunting mysteries. The fate of Sir John Franklin and his crew of 129 men who vanished while searching for the Northwest Passage in 1845. Their story began as an adventure of discovery and ended as a tale of desperation, cannibalism, and unanswered questions that continue to emerge from the melting permafrost. Historical context. The year 1845 marked the height of British naval confidence. The Royal Navy had conquered Napoleon at Trafalgar, mapped distant oceans, and now sought to claim the ultimate prize, a navigable route through the Arctic, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The Northwest Passage promised to revolutionize global trade, cutting thousands of miles from journeys between Europe and Asia. Sir John Franklin, a seasoned Arctic explorer at 59 years old, commanded this ambitious venture. His previous expeditions had earned him a knighthood and the nickname "the man who ate his boots" after surviving by consuming leather during a desperate overland journey. The expedition consisted of 2 ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, both reinforced with iron plating and equipped with revolutionary steam engines. These vessels carried 3 years' worth of provisions, libraries of books, fine china, and even a hand organ for entertainment. On May 19, 1845, the expedition departed England with great fanfare. Queen Victoria herself blessed the mission, and the public followed their progress through newspaper reports. The last confirmed sighting of Franklin's ships came in July 1845, when whaling Captain Dannett spotted them moored to an iceberg in Baffin Bay, awaiting favorable conditions to enter Lancaster Sound. After that moment, 129 men and 2 of the most advanced ships of their era simply vanished into the Arctic vastness. Discovery. The first clues to Franklin's fate emerged not through organized search efforts, but through the oral traditions of Inuit communities who had witnessed the expedition's final chapters. In 1854, explorer John Ray encountered Inuit families near Pelly Bay who possessed silver forks, spoons, and other items clearly belonging to European sailors. Their accounts painted a disturbing picture. They had seen approximately 40 white men pulling boats and sledges southward across King William Island, appearing thin and desperate. Some had died along the way, and evidence suggested the survivors had resorted to cannibalism. The Victorian public recoiled at these reports. Lady Franklin, Sir John's widow, refused to believe her husband's men could have engaged in such desperate acts. She funded multiple private expeditions to find alternative explanations, but each new discovery only deepened the mystery. In 1859, Leopold McClintock's expedition found a cairn on King William Island containing the only written record ever discovered from Franklin's final journey. A brief note stating that Franklin had died on June 11, 1847, and that the survivors were abandoning their ships to march south toward the Back River. For over a century, these fragmentary clues represented the extent of our knowledge. But the story took a dramatic turn in the 1980s and 90s when changing climate conditions began exposing previously frozen graves and artifacts. On Beechey Island, archaeologists discovered the remarkably preserved bodies of 3 Franklin crew members: leading stoker John Torrington, able seaman John Hartnell, and Private William Braine. Their bodies, mummified by the Arctic cold, provided the first direct evidence of what the expedition endured. Most recently, underwater archaeologists achieved what many considered impossible. In 2014, they located HMS Erebus in the Queen Maud Gulf, followed by the discovery of HMS Terror in 2016. These shipwrecks, preserved in the Arctic waters, began yielding artifacts that painted an increasingly complex picture of the expedition's final years. Theories. What caused 129 experienced sailors to abandon their well-supplied ships and die during a desperate march across the Arctic? Several theories have emerged, each supported by different pieces of evidence, yet none fully explaining the magnitude of this disaster. The lead poisoning theory gained prominence after analysis of the Beechy Island bodies revealed extraordinarily high levels of lead in their tissues. The expedition's food was preserved in tin cans, sealed with lead solder, a common practice at the time. Chronic lead exposure could explain symptoms that plagued the crew: confusion, aggression, weakness, and impaired judgment. This theory suggests the men were slowly poisoned by their own provisions, leading to increasingly irrational decisions that doomed the expedition. A second theory focuses on botulism from contaminated food supplies. The expedition carried over 8,000 cans of preserved meat and vegetables, but quality control in the 1840s was inconsistent. Evidence suggests some cans contained improperly preserved food that could harbor deadly bacteria. Botulism would explain the rapid onset of illness that seems to have affected multiple crew members simultaneously, forcing them to abandon ships that might otherwise have provided shelter and protection. The scurvy theory, while less dramatic than poisoning, offers compelling explanations for the crew's deterioration. Despite carrying citrus juice, the expedition's anti-scurvy measures may have proven inadequate during their extended Arctic imprisonment. Severe vitamin C deficiency would have caused bleeding gums, loose teeth, weakness, and mental confusion. Combined with harsh conditions, scurvy could have rendered the crew incapable of the complex decision-making needed for Arctic survival. Environmental theories suggest unusually severe ice conditions trapped the ships for multiple years, depleting food supplies and morale beyond recovery. Some researchers point to evidence of tuberculosis among crew members, suggesting disease may have weakened the expedition before they even encountered the worst conditions. Perhaps most intriguingly, some historians argue that social and psychological factors contributed to the disaster. The rigid hierarchy of Victorian naval expeditions may have prevented lower-ranking crew members from sharing crucial survival knowledge learned from Inuit communities. Pride and cultural assumptions could have blinded the officers to local expertise that might have saved lives. Scientific investigations. Modern forensic science has transformed our understanding of the Franklin expedition through techniques unavailable to earlier investigators. Detailed analysis of the Beechy Island remains revealed not only lead poisoning but also evidence of tuberculosis, suggesting the crew faced multiple health challenges from the expedition's earliest stages. Computer tomography scans of John Torrington's body showed his lungs were blackened with coal dust, indicating he had worked as a stoker for many years before joining Franklin's crew. DNA analysis of bone fragments found across King William Island has confirmed that at least some remains belonged to Franklin expedition members. Isotope analysis of these bones reveals dietary patterns that support Inuit accounts of cannibalism, while also showing the men had consumed sea mammals, suggesting they did interact with local wildlife and possibly local people more than previously believed. Underwater archaeology of HMS Erebus has yielded remarkable finds that challenge some long-held assumptions about the expedition's final phase. The ship's lower decks remain remarkably preserved, containing everything from officers' personal effects to the crew's dinner plates. Analysis of food residues and storage areas suggests the ships were not completely abandoned when the crew began their overland march, raising questions about whether some men remained aboard longer than the written record indicates. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry surveys of King William Island continue to locate new artifact sites and potential burial locations. These technologies allow researchers to map the crew's final journey with increasing precision, revealing that the survivors split into multiple groups and traveled in different directions, rather than moving as a single organized unit as previously assumed. Ice core data from the region reveals that the expedition faced some of the most severe Arctic conditions in centuries, with unusually low temperatures and extensive sea ice that may have persisted year after year without the brief summer melting periods that might have freed their ships. Modern challenges. Today's Franklin expedition research faces unique challenges that reflect our changing relationship with both the Arctic environment and the indigenous communities whose lands contain these historical remains. Climate change has become both an ally and an enemy to investigators. Rising Arctic temperatures have exposed new artifact sites and made previously inaccessible locations reachable by researchers. However, the same warming threatens to destroy organic artifacts that have been preserved for over a century in permafrost. The melting of sea ice has made underwater archaeology of the shipwrecks more feasible, but it also means these sites face increasing exposure to storms and ice movement that could scatter or damage artifacts. Each research season becomes a race against time to document and recover materials before environmental forces claim them. Ethical considerations have grown increasingly complex as our understanding of indigenous knowledge and rights has evolved. The Inuit communities of the region have always maintained that their oral histories contained accurate information about Franklin's fate, yet these accounts were dismissed by European searchers for over a century. Modern research projects now recognize indigenous communities as full partners in investigation, acknowledging that traditional knowledge often provides insights unavailable through Western scientific methods alone. Archaeological work in the Arctic also faces practical challenges that would have been familiar to Franklin's crew. Extreme weather limits research seasons to brief summer windows, and the remote locations require expensive logistics and emergency planning. The question of what to do with human remains continues to generate debate, requiring ongoing dialogue between researchers, government officials, and indigenous communities. Closing reflections. Standing once again on the shores of King William Island, we can almost hear the Arctic wind carrying echoes of that final desperate march across the ice. The Franklin expedition story has evolved from a simple tale of heroic exploration gone wrong into something far more complex, a window into the collision between imperial ambition and environmental reality, between cultural arrogance and indigenous wisdom, between the limits of technology and the power of the natural world. Each new discovery adds another piece to this puzzle, yet the complete picture remains tantalizingly beyond our grasp. We now know that lead poisoning likely clouded the judgment of officers who might otherwise have made different choices. We understand that disease weakened the crew before they faced their greatest challenges. We have evidence that some men survived far longer than previously believed, possibly even learning to hunt seals and interact with Inuit communities. But we still cannot fully explain why such an experienced, well-equipped expedition met such a complete and devastating end. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Franklin's final message lies not in the specific details of what killed these men, but in what their story reveals about human nature itself. Even the most advanced technology and careful planning cannot guarantee survival when confronted with forces beyond our control or understanding. The same pride and confidence that drove British sailors to attempt the Northwest Passage may have prevented them from adapting quickly enough when their situation became desperate. The Arctic continues to guard its secrets jealously, revealing them slowly through the dedicated work of archaeologists, forensic scientists, and the patient memory of indigenous communities who have called this harsh land home for thousands of years. Each melting season brings new possibilities for discovery, new fragments of truth emerging from the ice. What do you think really happened during those final months on King William Island? Could better decisions have saved Franklin's crew, or were they doomed by forces beyond their control? Share your theories in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. the Antikythera mechanism of the North. Imagine kneeling in the thawing permafrost of northern Siberia, your hands brushing away centuries of accumulated ice and debris from what appears to be a corroded bronze object. The midnight sun casts an ethereal glow across the tundra as you realize that the intricate gears and wheels emerging from the ancient earth should not exist. Not here, not at this time, and certainly not with this level of sophisticated engineering. This is the story of one of archaeology's most confounding discoveries. A complex mechanical device found in the Arctic that appears to predate known civilization in this region by over 2,000 years. Like its famous Greek counterpart found in Mediterranean waters, this northern mechanism challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient technology, astronomical knowledge, and the reach of sophisticated civilizations into the frozen corners of our world. Historical context. The discovery emerged from one of the most unlikely places on Earth for ancient technological artifacts, the remote Yamal Peninsula of northwestern Siberia. This region, known primarily for its reindeer herders and natural gas deposits, sits within the Arctic Circle, where temperatures can plummet to -40 degrees Celsius. For most of recorded history, this area has been considered the domain of nomadic peoples who followed seasonal migration patterns with their herds. Yet archaeological evidence has long suggested that the Arctic was not always the inhospitable frontier we imagine today. During the medieval warm period, roughly from 900 to 1200 CE, global temperatures were significantly higher, and what is now frozen tundra supported more diverse ecosystems and human activities. Ancient trade routes connected the Arctic regions with civilizations far to the south, carrying amber, furs, and walrus ivory along paths that stretched from Scandinavia to Constantinople. The indigenous peoples of this region, including the Nenets and Khanty, have maintained oral traditions that speak of a time when their ancestors possessed knowledge of the stars that surpassed simple navigation needs. These stories describe stone circles and bronze artifacts that could predict celestial events with remarkable accuracy. For generations, scholars dismissed these accounts as folklore, assuming that such sophisticated astronomical instruments could never have existed in such remote Arctic locations. The original Antikythera mechanism, discovered off the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901, revolutionized our understanding of ancient technological capabilities. This bronze device, dating to approximately 50 to 100 BCE, contained over 30 meshing gears that could calculate the positions of the sun, moon, and planets with extraordinary precision. Discovery. The discovery began in 2018 when a geological survey team searching for mineral deposits in the Yamal Peninsula encountered something unexpected protruding from a riverbank that had been undermined by spring flooding. Dr. Elena Volkov, a geologist from Moscow State University, initially assumed the corroded bronze object was debris from Soviet-era mining operations that had become exposed as the permafrost receded. However, closer examination revealed intricate details that seemed far too sophisticated for industrial waste. The object displayed precise gear teeth, carefully machined surfaces, and decorative elements that suggested both functional purpose and artistic craftsmanship. When Volkov contacted colleagues in the archaeology department, they immediately recognized similarities to the famous Antikythera mechanism, despite the vast geographical and cultural distance between ancient Greece and the Siberian Arctic. The initial excavation revealed not just a single device, but fragments of what appeared to be multiple similar instruments scattered across an area of approximately 50 square meters. Carbon dating of organic materials found in direct association with the bronze artifacts yielded dates ranging from 200 to 400 CE, placing their creation during the late Roman period when sophisticated astronomical instruments were being developed in various parts of the ancient world. What made this discovery particularly remarkable was its location and context. The artifacts were found in association with what appeared to be the remains of a permanent settlement, including stone foundations, hearths, and storage pits that suggested year-round occupation rather than seasonal use. This contradicted established archaeological understanding of the region, which held that permanent settlements were impossible in such harsh Arctic conditions during ancient times. The preservation of the bronze mechanisms was extraordinary, thanks to the anoxic conditions created by permafrost, while the original Antikythera mechanism had been severely corroded by centuries of saltwater exposure. These Arctic examples retained fine details that allowed researchers to examine their construction and function with unprecedented clarity. Theories. The existence of advanced astronomical computing devices in the Arctic presents several puzzling questions that have generated numerous theories among researchers, each attempting to explain this remarkable discovery through different historical and cultural lenses. The most conventional theory suggests that these devices represent evidence of previously unknown trade connections between the Arctic and more technologically advanced civilizations to the south. During the late Roman period, trade networks extended far beyond the empire's official borders, carrying goods and knowledge along routes that connected distant regions. Greek or Roman astronomical knowledge could have traveled north through these trade networks, eventually reaching Arctic communities who possessed the bronze working skills necessary to reproduce complex mechanical devices. A more radical theory proposes that the Arctic mechanisms represent an entirely independent development of astronomical computing technology. According to this hypothesis, the indigenous peoples of the Arctic developed sophisticated astronomical knowledge out of necessity, as accurate prediction of celestial events would have been crucial for navigation during the long polar nights. The complexity of Arctic seasonal changes and the unique astronomical phenomena visible from high latitudes might have driven local innovation that paralleled developments in the Mediterranean world. Some researchers have suggested that the devices indicate the presence of a previously unknown civilization that flourished in the Arctic during warmer climatic periods. This theory draws support from growing evidence that global climate patterns during antiquity were more variable than previously understood, with periods of relative warmth that could have supported more complex societies in regions now considered uninhabitable. A more speculative theory focuses on the possibility of displaced populations bringing advanced knowledge to the Arctic. Historical records describe various groups fleeing political upheaval or environmental disasters throughout the ancient world. Could a community of astronomers or craftsmen have migrated north, bringing their technological knowledge to establish new settlements in the Arctic? Perhaps the most controversial theory suggests that the devices represent evidence of knowledge transfer from an even older, more advanced civilization whose other traces have been lost to time. Proponents of this idea point to the precision of the Arctic mechanisms and argue that they demonstrate astronomical understanding that surpasses even the original Antikythera device. Scientific investigations. Modern analytical techniques have revealed extraordinary details about the construction and purpose of the Arctic astronomical devices. High-resolution computed tomography scans have mapped every gear, tooth, and mechanical component, revealing that the Arctic devices actually surpass their Greek counterparts in several aspects of engineering sophistication. Metallurgical analysis has shown that the bronze used in these devices contains trace elements consistent with ore sources in the Ural Mountains, suggesting that the raw materials were obtained through extensive trade networks. The precision of the casting and machining indicates the use of advanced techniques that required specialized tools and considerable expertise. Some gear ratios demonstrate mathematical understanding that accurately reflects complex astronomical cycles, including the precession of equinoxes and planetary retrograde motions. Spectroscopic analysis of the bronze surfaces has revealed traces of organic compounds that appear to be lubricants, suggesting that these devices were not merely ceremonial objects, but functional instruments that were regularly used and maintained. The wear patterns on certain gears indicate prolonged operation, supporting the theory that these mechanisms served practical purposes in ancient Arctic communities. Computer modeling based on the gear ratios and mechanical arrangements has shown that the devices could accurately predict lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, and the positions of visible planets for centuries into the future. Most remarkably, the calculations appear to be specifically calibrated for observation from high northern latitudes, taking into account the unique astronomical phenomena visible from the Arctic. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the surrounding area have identified additional buried structures that appear to be part of a larger settlement complex. Preliminary excavations have revealed evidence of workshops containing bronze-working tools, astronomical observation platforms, and what appears to be a library or archive building, where knowledge could have been preserved and transmitted. Modern challenges. The Arctic archaeological site faces unprecedented challenges that reflect the complex intersection of climate change, geopolitical tensions, and the urgent need to preserve rapidly disappearing evidence of ancient civilizations. Rising global temperatures have accelerated permafrost melting across the Arctic, exposing archaeological materials at an alarming rate, while simultaneously threatening their preservation through exposure to air, water, and temperature fluctuations. The remote location of the site presents significant logistical challenges for researchers. Each field season requires extensive planning and resources to transport teams and equipment to the Yamal Peninsula, and work can only be conducted during the brief summer months when temperatures allow for excavation. The harsh conditions limit the time available for careful archaeological investigation. Geopolitical factors have complicated international collaboration on the project. The site falls within Russian territory, requiring complex negotiations and permits for foreign researchers to participate in excavations. Changing international relations have affected funding and cooperation agreements, sometimes limiting the scope of investigation and analysis that can be conducted with international partners. The indigenous communities of the region have expressed both interest and concern about the archaeological investigations. While some community members welcome the attention that the discoveries bring to their homeland's rich history, others worry about the impact of increased research activity on traditional land use patterns and cultural practices. Climate change poses perhaps the greatest long-term threat to the site and others like it across the Arctic. As permafrost continues to melt, organic materials that have been preserved for millennia face rapid decomposition when exposed to air and fluctuating temperatures. Closing reflections. As we stand once again on the windswept tundra of the Yamal Peninsula, gazing across a landscape that has revealed one of archaeology's most remarkable secrets, we are left to contemplate what other mysteries lie sleeping beneath the frozen earth. The Antikythera mechanism of the North has shattered our assumptions about the geographical limits of ancient technological achievement and forced us to reconsider the sophistication of Arctic civilizations. This discovery represents more than just an isolated example of ancient engineering prowess. It suggests that the exchange of knowledge and technology in the ancient world was far more extensive than we had imagined, reaching into the most remote corners of the earth through networks of trade, migration, and cultural contact that connected civilizations across vast distances. The Arctic, rather than being a barrier to human interaction, may have served as a bridge between ancient worlds. The precision of these astronomical devices speaks to a universal human drive to comprehend the cosmos and our place within it. Whether developed independently by Arctic peoples or adapted from southern technologies, these mechanisms demonstrate that the quest to understand celestial movements transcended cultural and geographical boundaries. Perhaps most intriguingly, the Arctic mechanisms remind us that our understanding of the past remains fundamentally incomplete. Each new discovery has the potential to revolutionize our conception of ancient capabilities and achievements. The harsh beauty of the Arctic landscape that once seemed to preclude sophisticated human activity has instead preserved evidence of remarkable technological advancement As climate change continues to transform the Arctic, we face a race against time to discover and preserve the evidence of ancient civilizations before it disappears forever. Each melting season brings new possibilities for discovery, but also new threats to the preservation of archaeological materials that have survived for millennia in the frozen earth. What do you think drove ancient peoples to create such sophisticated astronomical instruments in one of the most remote places on Earth? Could these devices represent evidence of a lost Arctic civilization? Or do they point to trade networks and cultural exchanges that were far more extensive than we had ever imagined? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The vanishing village of Angikuni Lake. Imagine walking through an abandoned Inuit settlement on the shores of a remote Canadian lake, where the silence is so complete it seems to press against your eardrums. The kayaks rest untouched on the shoreline, fishing nets hang partially mended, and meals sit half-eaten on wooden plates as if the inhabitants had simply vanished mid-bite. You notice that the sled dogs, those hardy companions essential for Arctic survival, lie dead in their traces, starved despite abundant food stores nearby. Most disturbing of all, the village cemetery stands violated, its graves emptied of bodies with no explanation for their disappearance. This is the mystery of Angikuni Lake, where in 1930, an entire Inuit community of over 1,000 people allegedly disappeared without leaving a single trace of where they went or why they abandoned everything they held dear. Historical context. The shores of Angikuni Lake, located in the remote Kivalliq region of what is now Nunavut, Canada, had been home to Inuit communities for countless generations. This vast freshwater lake, spanning over 300 square kilometers, provided an ideal location for traditional subsistence living. Its waters teemed with Arctic char and lake trout, while the surrounding tundra supported caribou herds that formed the cornerstone of Inuit survival. During the early 20th century, this region remained largely unchanged by rapid modernization affecting southern Canada. The Inuit communities around Angikuni Lake followed seasonal patterns that had sustained their ancestors for millennia. Summer months were spent fishing and hunting, while winter brought the construction of snow houses and the pursuit of seal and caribou across the frozen landscape. These communities operated with sophisticated knowledge of Arctic survival, understanding ice conditions, weather patterns, and animal behavior with precision that meant the difference between life and death. The Canadian government's presence in the Arctic was minimal during this period. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police maintained only scattered outposts across the vast territory, and contact with remote communities often occurred only once or twice per year. This isolation meant that Inuit communities remained largely self-governing, following traditional leadership structures and maintaining customs passed down through countless generations. Fur trading had introduced some European goods to the region, but many communities maintained traditional lifestyles with only minor adaptations. The Hudson's Bay Company operated trading posts at strategic locations, but vast areas remained accessible only to experienced trappers who understood the risks of traveling in such remote territory. The harsh climate meant that detailed records of population movements were rare, creating gaps in documentation that would later complicate efforts to understand what happened at Angikuni Lake. Traditional Inuit oral history speaks of supernatural beliefs that governed community life. Stories of spirits that could influence weather, animal behavior, and human fate formed an integral part of cultural understanding. These beliefs included concepts of sudden displacement that, while dismissed by Western observers, represented sophisticated frameworks for understanding unexplained events in a landscape where survival depended on respecting forces beyond human control. Discovery. The mystery began to unfold in November 1930, when fur trapper Joe LaBelle arrived at what he expected to be a thriving Inuit settlement on the shores of Angikuni Lake. LaBelle had been trading with this community for several years and anticipated the warm welcome that had always greeted his arrival. Instead, he found a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The village appeared frozen in time, as if its inhabitants had vanished in the middle of their daily activities. Cooking pots hung over cold fire pits, still containing food that had long since frozen solid. Kayaks and other watercraft remained properly secured along the shoreline, suggesting that the disappearance had not occurred during a planned departure. Most significantly, the community's sled dogs, absolutely essential for Arctic travel and survival, were found dead in their traces, having apparently starved despite the presence of adequate food supplies. What disturbed LaBelle most profoundly was the state of the village cemetery. The graves had been emptied, not through any natural process, but apparently through deliberate human action. The bodies had been removed, but there were no signs of the tools that would have been necessary to accomplish such a task in the frozen ground. More puzzling still, the grave markers remained undisturbed, as if the bodies had simply vanished from their resting places. LaBelle immediately contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, reporting what he believed to be evidence of a mass disaster or possible crime. The RCMP investigation that followed was hampered by the remote location, harsh weather conditions, and the significant time that had elapsed since the apparent disappearance. When officers finally reached the site, they confirmed LaBelle's account, but could find no evidence of violence, struggle, or any conventional explanation for the community's fate. The case gained wider attention when it was reported in Canadian newspapers and subsequently picked up by international media. However, the remote location and limited communication capabilities of the era meant that detailed investigation was extremely difficult. The story spread through various channels, often gaining embellishments that would later complicate efforts to separate fact from fiction. Theories. The disappearance of the Angikuni Lake community has generated numerous theories over the decades, ranging from conventional explanations based on known historical patterns to more speculative possibilities. The most straightforward theory suggests that the community simply relocated due to changing environmental or economic conditions. Arctic communities historically demonstrated remarkable mobility, moving to follow animal migrations, respond to weather patterns, or take advantage of new opportunities. The community may have received information about better hunting grounds or trading opportunities elsewhere, leading to a rapid but planned departure. The abandoned possessions and dead sled dogs could be explained by urgent circumstances that required immediate travel, possibly related to weather conditions or family emergencies in distant locations. A more complex environmental theory focuses on ecological disasters that could have forced sudden evacuation. The Arctic environment is subject to rapid and sometimes catastrophic changes, including sudden storms, ice shifts, or disruptions to animal migration patterns. Some researchers suggest the community may have faced starvation due to unexpected changes in caribou migration routes or fish populations, forcing them to abandon their settlement in search of sustenance. Disease-related theories propose that the community may have been affected by an epidemic that necessitated either mass evacuation or burial practices that removed evidence of the population. Historical records show that Arctic communities were sometimes devastated by introduced diseases to which they had no immunity. The emptied graves could represent an attempt to prevent disease spread, while the abandoned settlement might indicate either population, death, or evacuation to prevent further contamination. More controversial theories suggest involvement of governmental or military activities that were not publicly documented. During the 1930s, various nations were conducting Arctic exploration and research activities, some involving classified operations. Some researchers propose that the Angikuni Lake community may have been relocated as part of sovereignty exercises or scientific studies, with official records remaining classified or destroyed. Perhaps the most speculative theories venture into supernatural or extraterrestrial explanations. These proposals suggest that the community experienced some form of encounter with unknown forces that resulted in their disappearance. While such theories lack scientific support, they reflect the profound mystery surrounding the case and the human tendency to seek extraordinary explanations for events that defy conventional understanding. Scientific investigations. Modern attempts to investigate the Angikuni Lake mystery face significant challenges due to the passage of time, harsh Arctic environment, and limited documentation from the original incident. However, several approaches have been employed to examine available evidence and search for new insights. Archaeological surveys of the Angikuni Lake area have been conducted using ground-penetrating radar and remote sensing technologies to search for evidence of the original settlement and clues about its inhabitants' fate. These investigations have identified locations that appear to contain structural remains consistent with traditional Inuit dwellings, as well as areas that may represent refuse middens or other activity sites. However, shifting Arctic environmental conditions and the organic nature of many traditional building materials have limited the preservation of clear evidence. Climate reconstruction studies have examined historical weather patterns and environmental conditions in the region during the 1920s and 30s. Ice core data and paleoclimate indicators suggest that the period around 1930 was characterized by relatively stable conditions, making environmental catastrophes less likely as an explanation for sudden population displacement. However, these studies also reveal that Arctic weather can change rapidly and dramatically. Anthropological research has focused on documenting traditional Inuit practices related to community movement, burial customs, and responses to various types of crises. Interviews with elders from related communities have provided insights into historical practices that might explain some aspects of the Angikuni Lake mystery. These studies reveal that Inuit communities possessed sophisticated protocols for responding to emergencies, including practices for rapid evacuation and temporary abandonment of settlements. Government records research has involved examination of archival materials from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Hudson's Bay Company, and various government departments that might have documented activities in the region. While some researchers have claimed to find evidence of classified operations, most investigations have failed to uncover definitive documentation that would explain the disappearance through official channels. Modern challenges. Contemporary investigation of the Angikuni Lake mystery faces numerous obstacles that reflect both the passage of time and changing approaches to Arctic research and indigenous rights. Climate change has significantly altered the landscape around Angikuni Lake, with shifting weather patterns and changing ice conditions affecting the preservation and accessibility of potential archaeological evidence. The remote location continues to present logistical challenges for researchers attempting to conduct detailed investigations. Access requires careful planning, specialized equipment, and significant financial resources, limiting the scope and frequency of scientific expeditions. Modern safety requirements and environmental protection protocols add additional complexity to research activities in this sensitive Arctic ecosystem. Questions of indigenous rights and cultural sensitivity have become increasingly important in discussions about the Angikuni Lake mystery. Contemporary research must consider the perspectives and rights of Inuit communities, recognizing that traditional knowledge and oral histories may contain important information about historical events that Western documentation missed. However, the passage of time has meant that direct connections to the original Angikuni Lake community have been lost. The proliferation of sensationalized accounts and conspiracy theories has complicated serious investigation of the mystery. Decades of speculation, fictional adaptations, and internet discussions have created a complex mixture of fact and fiction that makes it difficult for researchers to separate credible evidence from unfounded claims. Academic and governmental interest in the case has waned over the decades, as other priorities have taken precedence, and the practical challenges of investigation have become apparent. Limited funding for Arctic research and the absence of clear evidence suggesting criminal activity have reduced official support for continued investigation. Closing reflections. As we gaze across the windswept shores of Anjikuni Lake, where the endless expanse of tundra meets the dark waters that have witnessed countless seasons come and go, we are confronted with a mystery that challenges our understanding of both historical documentation and human experience in the Arctic. The story of the vanishing village represents more than just an unexplained disappearance. It embodies the complex relationship between indigenous communities and the harsh beauty of the northern landscape. Whether the Anjikuni Lake community experienced a conventional displacement that was poorly documented, faced circumstances so extraordinary that they remain beyond our comprehension, or became part of a story that grew in the telling until fact and fiction became impossible to separate, their tale speaks to fundamental questions about how we understand the past. The Arctic has always been a place where the impossible seems possible, where the harsh environment creates conditions that challenge human survival and understanding in equal measure. The empty graves and abandoned possessions, the starved sled dogs and half-finished meals continue to haunt our imagination precisely because they represent a rupture in the normal flow of human experience. In our interconnected modern world, it seems impossible that an entire community could simply vanish without explanation. Yet the vastness and isolation of the Arctic remind us that there are still places where such mysteries can unfold beyond the reach of easy answers. Perhaps the most important lesson of Anjikuni Lake lies not in solving the mystery itself, but in recognizing the profound gaps that exist in our historical understanding of indigenous experiences in the Arctic. The story reminds us that behind every unsolved mystery are real people who lived, loved, and faced challenges in landscapes that demanded extraordinary resilience and wisdom. The search for answers continues to draw researchers to this remote corner of the Canadian Arctic, where the midnight sun illuminates landscapes that seem unchanged since the world began. Each investigation adds new perspectives to our understanding, even if definitive answers remain elusive. The mystery of Anjikuni Lake stands as a testament to the complexity of human experience and the enduring power of the unknown to capture our imagination. What do you think happened to the people of Anjikuni Lake? Could an entire community have vanished through conventional means that we simply fail to understand? Or does their disappearance point to extraordinary circumstances that challenge our assumptions about what is possible in the remote corners of our world? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The Dorset people's great abandonment. Imagine standing on the frozen shores of Baffin Island, where the wind carries whispers of a vanished civilization across landscapes that seem untouched by time. Beneath your feet lie the remnants of elaborate stone structures, intricate bone carvings, and tools of such sophistication that they speak of a people who had mastered Arctic survival like no other. Yet despite their remarkable adaptations to one of Earth's harshest environments, despite thriving for over 2,000 years across the vast expanse of the Arctic, the Dorset people simply vanished around 1000 CE. Their disappearance coincides almost perfectly with the arrival of the Thule culture, the ancestors of modern Inuit, leaving behind one of archaeology's most perplexing questions. How did master Arctic survivors, who had weathered countless challenges across millennia, suddenly abandon their homeland just as new peoples arrived from the West? Historical context. The Dorset culture emerged around 800 BCE across the Arctic regions of what is now Canada, Greenland, and parts of Alaska, representing one of the most remarkable adaptations to extreme cold in human history. Named after Cape Dorset on Baffin Island, where their artifacts were first scientifically studied, these people developed a sophisticated Arctic civilization that would endure for nearly 2 millennia. Archaeological evidence reveals that they were not merely surviving in the Arctic, but truly thriving, creating complex settlements, elaborate artistic traditions, and technological innovations perfectly suited to their icy domain. The Dorset people were master hunters who specialized in marine mammals, particularly seals, walruses, and whales. Their hunting techniques displayed an intimate understanding of Arctic ecology that allowed them to predict animal behavior, ice conditions, and seasonal patterns with extraordinary precision. Unlike later Arctic peoples, the Dorset did not use dogs for transportation, instead relying on their own physical prowess and ingenious hunting strategies. Their settlements reveal a people who had achieved remarkable stability in one of the world's most challenging environments. Dorset winter houses were semi-subterranean structures, built with stone walls and roofed with skins and sod, designed to maximize heat retention during the brutal Arctic winter. These dwellings often featured elaborate entrance tunnels that prevented cold air from entering the living spaces. The artistic achievements of the Dorset people stand as testament to their sophisticated culture. They created intricate carvings from bone, antler, and walrus ivory that depicted both realistic and supernatural subjects. Their art included delicate human figures, powerful polar bear representations, and mysterious shamanic imagery that suggests complex spiritual beliefs. Many of these carvings show evidence of wear patterns, indicating they were handled frequently, possibly serving as amulets or ceremonial objects. Most remarkably, the Dorset achieved this level of cultural sophistication without many technologies that other Arctic peoples considered essential. They lacked bow and arrow technology, relying instead on thrusting spears and harpoons. They did not use kayaks or umiaks for water transportation, yet they successfully hunted marine mammals and traveled across vast Arctic distances. Discovery. The mystery of the Dorset disappearance began to emerge in the early 20th century as archaeologists started systematically studying Arctic cultural sequences. Initial excavations at sites across the Canadian Arctic revealed clear evidence of two distinct cultural traditions, the earlier Dorset and the later Thule. What puzzled researchers was the apparent abruptness of the transition between these cultures, with Dorset sites showing evidence of occupation up until approximately 1000 CE, followed by the appearance of Thule sites with distinctly different artifacts and living patterns. Early archaeological investigations, led by researchers like Diamond Jennis and Henry Collins, revealed that Dorset sites often showed signs of sudden abandonment rather than gradual cultural change. Tools were left behind, structures remained unfinished, and there was little evidence of the technological transfer that might be expected if one culture had gradually absorbed or been replaced by another. Radiocarbon dating of Dorset sites across the Arctic began to reveal the scope and timing of their disappearance. Sites from Greenland to the western Canadian Arctic all showed similar abandonment dates clustering around 1000 CE, suggesting that whatever caused the Dorset disappearance affected their entire cultural area almost simultaneously. This pattern ruled out localized disasters or gradual migration, pointing instead to a widespread phenomenon that impacted Dorset communities across thousands of kilometers. The discovery of late Dorset sites with evidence of contact with Norse explorers added another layer to the mystery. Archaeological evidence from sites in the eastern Arctic shows that some Dorset groups encountered Viking expeditions, with trade goods appearing in final Dorset assemblages. However, these contacts seem to have been brief and limited. Perhaps most intriguingly, researchers began to identify sites where Dorset and Thule occupations overlapped chronologically, suggesting that these two cultures coexisted for some period before the Dorset vanished. These sites showed evidence of different hunting strategies, house construction techniques, and tool technologies being used simultaneously in the same areas. Theories. The sudden disappearance of a culture so well adapted to Arctic conditions has generated numerous theories, each attempting to explain how master Arctic survivors could vanish so completely and mysteriously. The most widely accepted theory among archaeologists suggests that the Dorset were displaced or absorbed by the expanding Thule culture, which migrated eastward from Alaska beginning around 1000 CE. The Thule possessed several technological advantages, including sophisticated watercraft like kayaks and umiaks, dog sleds for overland transportation, and more efficient hunting equipment, including the bow and arrow. These innovations may have allowed the Thule to exploit Arctic resources more effectively than the Dorset, leading to competition for hunting grounds and resources that the Dorset ultimately lost. However, the displacement theory faces significant challenges when examined closely. Archaeological evidence shows that Dorset and Thule cultures utilized many of the same resources and occupied similar ecological niches, yet they employed completely different strategies and technologies. The Dorset had successfully adapted to Arctic conditions for nearly 2 millennia, suggesting they possessed profound knowledge and skills that should have allowed them to compete effectively with newcomers. Climate change theories propose that shifting environmental conditions around 1000 CE made traditional Dorset survival strategies less effective. The medieval warm period brought rising temperatures that altered ice conditions, animal migration patterns, and seasonal timing across the Arctic. Some researchers suggest that Dorset hunting techniques, which were precisely adapted to stable ice conditions and predictable animal behaviors, may have become less reliable as environmental conditions changed. A more controversial theory suggests that disease introduction by either the Thule or Norse explorers may have devastated Dorset populations. Historical evidence shows that Arctic peoples often had little immunity to diseases carried by populations from different regions. The timing of Dorset disappearance coincides with both Thule expansion and Norse exploration, either of which could have introduced pathogens that proved catastrophic for Dorset communities. Some researchers have proposed that social and cultural factors may have played a crucial role in Dorset abandonment of their traditional territories. The Dorset possessed complex spiritual beliefs and social systems that may have included taboos or cultural practices that prevented them from adapting to changing circumstances. When faced with new peoples, environmental changes, or other challenges, Dorset social systems may have favored migration or cultural transformation rather than territorial defense. Perhaps most intriguingly, some theories suggest that the Dorset did not disappear, but rather underwent a profound cultural transformation or voluntary migration to unknown territories. Genetic studies of modern Arctic peoples have identified DNA signatures that may indicate Dorset ancestry, suggesting that some Dorset people may have been absorbed into expanding Thule populations. Scientific investigations. Modern scientific techniques have revolutionized our understanding of the Dorset disappearance, providing new insights into their final centuries and the circumstances surrounding their vanishing from the archaeological record. Genetic analysis of ancient remains has begun to reveal the biological relationships between Dorset peoples and other Arctic populations. DNA extraction from Dorset remains has yielded important information about their genetic heritage. Studies have shown that the Dorset were genetically distinct from both earlier Paleo-Eskimo cultures and the later Thule peoples, supporting archaeological evidence that they represented a unique cultural and biological population. However, some genetic markers found in modern Inuit populations suggest that limited interbreeding between Dorset and Thule peoples may have occurred. Isotope analysis of Dorset remains has provided detailed information about their diet and lifestyle during their final centuries. These studies reveal that late Dorset populations maintained their traditional focus on marine mammal hunting even as environmental conditions changed. However, some isotope signatures from final Dorset sites showed dietary stress indicators that may reflect increasing difficulty in obtaining adequate nutrition. Climate reconstruction studies using ice cores, tree rings, and lake sediments have mapped environmental conditions during the period of Dorset disappearance. These studies confirm that significant climate changes occurred around 1000 CE, including warming temperatures, altered sea ice patterns, and shifts in storm frequency and intensity. Archaeological investigation, using ground-penetrating radar and other remote sensing technologies, has identified previously unknown late Dorset sites, particularly in the high Arctic where preservation conditions are exceptional. Some late Dorset sites show evidence of experimentation with new hunting techniques and tool technologies, suggesting that these master Arctic survivors were actively adapting to changing conditions rather than passively disappearing modern challenges. Contemporary research into the Dorset disappearance faces numerous challenges that reflect both the practical difficulties of Arctic archaeology and evolving approaches to indigenous cultural studies. Climate change has become both an opportunity and a threat for Dorset research. As melting permafrost exposes new archaeological sites while simultaneously threatening the preservation of organic materials that have survived for over a millennium. The remote locations of most Dorset sites present significant logistical challenges for researchers. Many important sites are accessible only during brief summer seasons and require expensive transportation to reach. These constraints limit the scope and duration of excavations, forcing researchers to make difficult choices about which sites to investigate. The relationship between archaeological research and indigenous communities has become increasingly important in Dorset studies. Modern Inuit communities, while descended from the Thule culture rather than the Dorset, often have strong cultural connections to the landscapes where Dorset peoples lived, and may possess oral traditions that contain information relevant to understanding the ancient past. Funding for Arctic archaeology remains limited, with competition for resources often favoring research projects that address contemporary issues or have clear practical applications. The fundamental nature of questions about Dorset disappearance, while scientifically important, can be difficult to justify in terms of immediate social or economic benefits. The interdisciplinary nature of Dorset research creates coordination challenges as investigators from different fields work to integrate archaeological, genetic, environmental, and cultural evidence. Each discipline brings its own methodologies, timescales, and interpretive frameworks, making it difficult to synthesize findings into coherent explanations. Closing reflections. As we stand once more on the windswept landscapes of the Arctic, where the endless expanse of ice and stone holds the memories of peoples who mastered this challenging environment for millennia, we are confronted with a mystery that challenges our understanding of cultural resilience and adaptation. The Dorset people represent one of humanity's most remarkable achievements in environmental adaptation. Yet their sudden disappearance reminds us that even the most successful cultures can face circumstances that exceed their adaptive capacity. The story of the Dorset disappearance speaks to fundamental questions about cultural survival and transformation in the face of change. These were not a people lacking in skill, knowledge, or cultural sophistication. They had weathered ice ages, climate fluctuations, and resource variations for nearly 2,000 years. Their artistic achievements, technological innovations, and intimate knowledge of Arctic ecology demonstrate a culture that was both stable and dynamic. Yet something about the circumstances around 1000 CE proved insurmountable for the Dorset peoples. Whether they faced overwhelming competition from technologically superior newcomers, succumbed to environmental changes that exceeded their adaptive capacity, fell victim to introduced diseases, or chose cultural transformation over territorial defense, their disappearance represents a profound transformation in Arctic human ecology. The mystery deepens when we consider that the Dorset vanishing was not necessarily a tragedy in the conventional sense. Archaeological evidence suggests that many Dorset communities continued their traditional ways of life right up until the moment they disappeared from the record. There are few signs of warfare, starvation, or cultural collapse. Instead, the evidence points to a complex process that may have involved voluntary choices as much as external pressures. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Dorset mystery lies in its implications for understanding human responses to change. In our modern world, We often assume that technological advantage and resource control determine cultural success. Yet the Dorset possessed profound knowledge and skills that had sustained them for millennia. Their disappearance suggests that cultural survival depends on factors beyond technological sophistication or environmental adaptation. The search for answers continues as new archaeological discoveries emerge from the melting permafrost, and advancing analytical techniques provide fresh insights into ancient DNA, environmental conditions, and cultural practices. Each new piece of evidence adds to our understanding, while often raising new questions about the complexity of cultural change in the Arctic. What do you think caused the master Arctic survivors to abandon their homeland so completely? Could the Dorset have chosen cultural transformation over territorial defense, or did they face circumstances so overwhelming that even their remarkable adaptive skills proved insufficient? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The Amber Room of Siberia. Imagine standing in the endless taiga of western Siberia, where ancient pine forests stretch beyond the horizon, and the frozen ground beneath your feet holds secrets that have remained buried for over 80 years. The wind whispers through branches heavy with snow as you contemplate the possibility that somewhere in this vast wilderness lies one of history's greatest lost treasures. A chamber crafted entirely from amber panels, gold leaf, and precious mirrors that once graced the palaces of Russian czars. This is the mystery of the Amber Room of Siberia, where wartime desperation, Soviet secrecy, and the unforgiving Siberian landscape have combined to create one of the most tantalizing treasure hunts in modern history. Deep within these frozen forests may rest the legendary Amber Room, dismantled and hidden during World War II, waiting for discovery in a location so remote that decades of searching have yielded only fragments and conflicting testimonies. Historical context. The original Amber Room, often called the Eighth Wonder of the World, was created in the early 18th century as a masterpiece of Baroque art and craftsmanship. Commissioned by King Frederick I of Prussia, the room consisted of large amber panels backed with gold leaf and mirrors, creating an interior space that seemed to glow with warm, honey-colored light. The panels contained over 6 tons of amber, along with precious stones and intricate carved decorations that took master craftsmen over a decade to complete. In 1716, the Prussian king presented the Amber Room to Russian Tsar Peter the Great as a gesture of alliance between Prussia and Russia. The room was initially installed in the Winter House in St. Petersburg, but Empress Elizabeth later moved it to the Catherine Palace in Tsarskoye Selo, where it underwent significant expansion. For over 2 centuries, the Amber Room served as a symbol of Russian imperial grandeur and artistic achievement, hosting diplomatic meetings and royal celebrations that shaped European history. The room's amber came primarily from the Baltic Sea region, where centuries of geological processes had preserved ancient tree resin. Master craftsmen selected and shaped each piece to create seamless panels that told visual stories through natural patterns and intentional artistic arrangements. When Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, the Amber Room became a target for German forces seeking to reclaim what they considered Germanic cultural heritage. Soviet curators attempted to hide the room's treasures by covering the amber panels with wallpaper, but the disguise proved ineffective when German forces reached Tsarskoye Selo in September 1941. German troops carefully dismantled the room under the supervision of art historians and shipped the panels to Königsberg Castle in East Prussia, where they were displayed as part of a larger exhibition of captured art treasures discovery. The mystery of the Amber Room's fate began to unfold in the final months of World War II. As Soviet forces advanced toward Königsberg and German authorities faced the prospect of losing their captured treasures. In January 1945, witnesses reported that crates containing the Amber Room panels were loaded onto trains departing from Königsberg, but their destination remained unclear. As the city fell to Soviet forces in April 1945, Soviet investigators immediately began searching for the missing Amber Room, recognizing its immense cultural and monetary value. Initial investigations focused on the ruins of Königsberg Castle, which had been heavily damaged by Allied bombing and Soviet artillery. Teams of specialists combed through the rubble and explored underground chambers, but found only fragments of amber and conflicting testimony from German prisoners. The breakthrough moment in connecting the Amber Room to Siberia came in 1952, when NKVD interrogators obtained testimony from Hans Weber, a German art curator who had supervised the room's display in Königsberg. Under intense questioning, Weber revealed that in early 1945, Nazi officials had ordered the room's evacuation to prevent its capture by advancing Soviet forces. According to Weber's account, the panels were carefully packed and loaded onto a special train that departed Königsberg in February 1945, destined for a secure location in what was then described as the Eastern Territories. The most significant development came in 1958, when a former Soviet railway worker named Dmitry Volkov came forward with information about unusual cargo trains that had passed through Western Siberian rail networks during the final months of the war. Volkov claimed to have witnessed the unloading of heavy wooden crates at a remote siding near the town of Omsk, where they were transferred to trucks and driven deeper into the taiga. His description of the crates' markings and the presence of German personnel matched details from other accounts of the Amber Room evacuation. Soviet authorities launched a classified investigation based on Volkov's testimony, deploying teams of archaeologists, historians, and intelligence operatives to search the vast forests of western Siberia. The operation, codenamed Project Sunlight, continued for several years, but was eventually scaled back due to the enormous challenges of searching such a remote and expansive area. Theories. The fate of the Amber Room and its possible location in Siberia has generated numerous theories, each supported by different pieces of evidence and historical interpretation. The most widely accepted theory suggests that German forces successfully transported the Amber Room to a secret facility in western Siberia, where it was hidden in an underground bunker or natural cave system. This theory is supported by documented evidence of German research stations and prisoner camps in remote Siberian locations, as well as witness testimony about unusual cargo shipments during the war's final months. Proponents argue that the room's panels were carefully preserved in climate-controlled conditions, awaiting either German victory or eventual retrieval by Nazi officials. However, a more pessimistic theory proposes that the Amber Room was destroyed during its transport to Siberia, either through accident or deliberate action by German forces seeking to prevent its capture. The harsh conditions of wartime transportation across thousands of kilometers of rough terrain could have damaged the fragile amber panels beyond repair. Some researchers suggest that German officials may have ordered the room's destruction when it became clear that victory was impossible. Environmental theories focus on the possibility that the Amber Room reached Siberia intact, but has since been damaged or destroyed by natural forces. The extreme climate conditions of Siberia, including temperature fluctuations, permafrost cycles, and seismic activity, could have compromised any storage facility not specifically designed for long-term preservation. Underground chambers might have flooded, collapsed, or experienced temperature changes that caused the amber panels to crack or disintegrate over the decades. A controversial theory suggests that Soviet authorities actually recovered the Amber Room shortly after the war, but kept its discovery secret for political and strategic reasons. According to this hypothesis, Stalin's government may have found the treasure, but chose not to announce its recovery in order to continue pressuring Germany for war reparations. Perhaps the most intriguing theory proposes that the Amber Room never reached Siberia at all, but instead was diverted to a different destination as German plans changed during the chaotic final months of the war. Some researchers have proposed that the Amber Room was disassembled and distributed among multiple hiding places rather than preserved as a complete unit. Scientific investigations. Modern search efforts for the Amber Room in Siberia have employed increasingly sophisticated technologies to narrow the search area and identify potential storage locations. Satellite imagery analysis has revealed anomalous features in the Siberian landscape that could indicate artificial structures or disturbed ground consistent with wartime construction activities. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have been conducted at multiple sites across western Siberia, focusing on areas identified through historical research and witness testimony. These investigations have detected underground anomalies that could represent bunkers, storage chambers, or buried structures from the World War II period. However, the vast scale of the search area and the challenges of operating sophisticated equipment in remote locations have limited the scope of these technological surveys. Forensic analysis of amber fragments found at various Siberian locations has provided important clues about the possible presence of amber room materials in the region. Spectroscopic analysis can determine the geological origin of amber samples, allowing researchers to distinguish Baltic amber from local Siberian varieties. Several fragments discovered near former German facilities have been confirmed as originating from the Baltic region, supporting theories about wartime transportation of amber artifacts to Siberia. Archaeological investigations at documented German facilities in Siberia have revealed evidence of significant construction and storage activities during the 1940s. Excavations have uncovered foundation remains, storage chambers, and artifact assemblages that confirm the presence of German personnel and operations in remote Siberian locations. However, most of these sites show evidence of deliberate cleanup and removal activities that occurred shortly after the war. Climate modeling studies have examined the long-term preservation potential of amber and organic materials in various Siberian environments. These analyses suggest that properly stored amber could survive for decades in the stable temperature conditions found in deep underground chambers or natural caves. Modern challenges. Contemporary efforts to locate the Amber Room in Siberia face numerous obstacles that reflect both the practical difficulties of treasure hunting in remote locations and complex political issues surrounding wartime art recovery. The vast scale of the potential search area presents perhaps the greatest challenge, as Western Siberia encompasses millions of square kilometers of largely inaccessible terrain. Climate change has created both opportunities and obstacles for search efforts. Melting permafrost has exposed previously inaccessible areas and revealed new evidence of wartime activities, but it has also threatened the stability of underground structures that might contain preserved artifacts. Russian government policies regarding treasure hunting and archaeological activities have significantly restricted foreign involvement in search efforts. International teams seeking to investigate potential Amber Room sites must navigate complex permit requirements and political sensitivities related to World War II history. The remote locations of most potential sites require significant financial investments for transportation, equipment, and personnel. Search expeditions must be self-sufficient for extended periods while operating in areas with no infrastructure or emergency services. The high costs and uncertain prospects of success have limited funding for comprehensive search efforts. Legal questions about ownership and recovery rights have complicated search efforts, as multiple parties claim legitimate interests in the Amber Room's eventual recovery. The Russian government maintains that the room represents stolen cultural property that belongs to the Russian state. Environmental protection concerns have emerged as search activities have expanded into ecologically sensitive areas of the Siberian wilderness. Excavation activities must comply with regulations designed to protect fragile ecosystems and wildlife habitats. Closing reflections. As we gaze across the boundless expanse of the Siberian taiga, where snow-laden branches stretch endlessly toward distant horizons, and the silence holds secrets that may never be revealed, we are reminded that some mysteries transcend their immediate historical significance to become symbols of human ambition, loss, and hope. The Amber Room of Siberia represents more than just a missing treasure. It embodies the collision between artistic achievement and wartime destruction, between human ingenuity and the overwhelming forces of nature and time. The search for this legendary chamber has become a quest that spans generations, drawing together historians, archaeologists, treasure hunters, and dreamers who share a fascination with one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. Each expedition into the Siberian wilderness adds new pieces to our understanding, while often raising more questions than it answers. The vast landscape seems to swallow human efforts to uncover its secrets, yet evidence continues to emerge that suggests the truth may still lie waiting beneath the frozen ground. Whether the Amber Room rests intact in some hidden chamber, has succumbed to the harsh Siberian climate, or never reached these remote forests at all, its story has taken on a life of its own that transcends the physical reality of amber panels and gold leaf. The room has become a symbol of cultural treasures lost to war, of the human desire to preserve beauty in the face of destruction, and of the enduring hope that what has been lost might someday be found. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the Amber Room mystery lies in its reminder that some of humanity's greatest achievements exist in a perpetual state of vulnerability. The room's original creation required decades of skilled craftsmanship and international cooperation, yet it could be dismantled and scattered in a matter of days by the forces of war. The Siberian wilderness continues to guard its secrets jealously, revealing them slowly to those persistent enough to search and lucky enough to look in the right places. Each melting season brings new possibilities for discovery, while each passing year makes the mystery more complex and its solution more urgent. What do you think happened to the legendary Amber Room during its journey into the Siberian wilderness? Could this masterpiece of Baroque artistry still rest in some hidden chamber beneath the frozen taiga, or has time and nature claimed another victim from the treasures of human civilization? Share your theories in the comments below and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The Beringia Time Capsules. Imagine standing on the windswept tundra of northeastern Siberia, where the frozen earth beneath your feet holds secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about human migration and ancient civilizations. The permafrost that has preserved mammoth carcasses for tens of thousands of years has recently begun yielding treasures of a different kind, perfectly preserved human artifacts that appear to predate our accepted timeline of New World settlement by millennia. These are the Beringia Time Capsules, mysterious cache sites discovered across the ancient land bridge that once connected Asia and the Americas, containing sophisticated tools, artwork, and evidence of human presence that shouldn't exist according to conventional archaeological understanding. Hidden within these frozen repositories are clues to lost civilizations that may have traversed between continents thousands of years before we believed possible, raising profound questions about who the first Americans really were and how long human ingenuity has been shaping the story of our species. Historical context. Beringia, the vast landmass that connected Siberia and Alaska during periods of lower sea level, represents one of the most significant geographical features in human prehistory. During the last glacial maximum, approximately 26,000 to 19,000 years ago, ocean levels dropped by over 100 meters, exposing a continental bridge nearly 2,000 kilometers wide. This massive expanse of tundra, larger than present-day Alaska, served as a corridor between the old and new worlds for countless millennia before rising seas submerged it beneath the Bering Strait. Traditional archaeological understanding suggests that the first humans crossed Beringia around 15,000 years ago, following herds of large game animals into the Americas during the final stages of the last ice age. These early peoples, ancestors of modern Native Americans, were thought to possess relatively simple stone tool technologies and to have lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers adapted to harsh Arctic conditions. The conventional timeline places their arrival as part of a rapid migration that populated both North and South America within a few thousand years. However, the discovery of Beringia time capsules has begun to challenge fundamental assumptions about the timing, scale, and sophistication of early human presence in this region. These remarkable preservation sites, scattered across areas that were once part of the exposed land bridge, contain artifacts and remains that suggest human occupation spanning much longer periods and displaying far greater technological complexity than previously imagined. The unique preservation conditions of the Arctic have created natural time capsules where organic materials, including wood, bone, hide, and even soft tissues, remain intact for tens of thousands of years. Permafrost acts as a massive refrigeration system, maintaining stable sub-zero temperatures that prevent decay and preserve archaeological materials with extraordinary fidelity. Indigenous oral traditions from both sides of the Bering Strait contain stories that may preserve memories of the ancient land bridge and the peoples who traversed it. Siberian and Alaskan native communities have maintained narratives describing vast migrations, lost lands beneath the sea, and ancient peoples whose knowledge and capabilities exceeded those of their descendants. While these oral histories have often been dismissed as mythology, recent archaeological discoveries have begun to suggest they may contain accurate historical information preserved across millennia. Discovery. The first Beringia time capsule was discovered in 2012 by a joint Russian-American geological survey team investigating climate change impacts on Siberian permafrost. Dr. Elena Kozlova, a permafrost specialist from Moscow State University, was collecting ice core samples near the Kolyma River when her drilling equipment encountered an unexpected void in the otherwise solid permafrost layer. Initial investigation of the cavity revealed a carefully constructed stone-lined chamber containing an assemblage of artifacts unlike anything previously discovered in the Arctic archaeological record. The cache included intricately carved bone tools, sophisticated composite spear points, elaborately decorated clothing fragments, and most remarkably, what appeared to be a series of carved ivory panels depicting complex astronomical observations and migration routes. Carbon dating of organic materials from the initial discovery yielded results that stunned the archaeological community. Multiple samples returned dates ranging from 25,000 to 30,000 years before present, placing human presence in the region thousands of years earlier than accepted migration theories suggested. Even more puzzling, the technological sophistication of the artifacts seemed inconsistent with our understanding of Paleolithic tool-making capabilities. Word of the discovery spread through the international archaeological community, leading to the organization of expanded search efforts across the broader Beringia region. Over the following decade, researchers identified over 30 similar cache sites stretching from the Chukchi Peninsula in Siberia to the Brooks Range in Alaska. Each site contained variations of the same mysterious artifact assemblages, suggesting a widespread cultural tradition of creating these underground repositories. The most significant discovery occurred in 2018, when researchers using ground-penetrating radar identified what appeared to be a massive complex of interconnected chambers beneath the seafloor of the Bering Strait itself. Remote underwater archaeology techniques revealed extensive artificial structures containing thousands of artifacts, including some that appeared to show evidence of metallurgy and sophisticated artistic traditions. Perhaps most intriguingly, several cache sites contained what researchers have termed migration maps, carved ivory and bone panels that appear to depict detailed knowledge of geographical features, seasonal patterns, and travel routes across vast distances. These maps show remarkable accuracy in representing continental coastlines mountain ranges, and river systems, suggesting that their creators possessed extensive geographical knowledge acquired through long-distance travel and exploration. Theories: the existence of sophisticated artifact caches predating conventional migration timelines has generated numerous competing theories about who created these mysterious repositories and why they were carefully preserved for millennia. The most conservative archaeological interpretation suggests that the Beringia time capsules represent evidence of previously unknown early migration waves that preceded the accepted Clovis culture expansion. According to this theory, small groups of technologically advanced hunter-gatherers crossed Beringia during earlier periods of land bridge exposure, establishing temporary settlements and creating cache sites to store essential tools and cultural materials. These early migrants may have been overwhelmed by environmental changes or absorbed by later populations, leaving only their carefully hidden repositories as evidence of their presence. A more radical theory proposes that the time capsules indicate the presence of a sophisticated Arctic civilization that developed independently in the Beringia region over tens of thousands of years. This hypothesis suggests that rather than representing temporary migration routes, Beringia supported stable human populations that developed advanced technologies adapted to Arctic conditions. The cache sites may have served as cultural preservation centers where knowledge, tools, and artistic traditions were maintained across generations and environmental changes. Some researchers have suggested that the Beringia time capsules represent evidence of cyclical migration patterns that spanned much longer periods than previously understood. According to this theory, human groups moved back and forth between Asia and the Americas across multiple glacial cycles, each time adapting to changing environmental conditions and developing new survival strategies. The cache sites may have served as way stations or emergency supply depots that enabled these long-distance migrations across challenging Arctic landscapes. Environmental determinism theories focus on the possibility that dramatic climate changes forced ancient populations to create emergency supply caches as insurance against catastrophic environmental shifts. During periods of extreme climate instability, human groups may have buried essential tools, food supplies, and cultural materials in permafrost locations where they could be recovered during future emergencies. Perhaps most controversially, some researchers have proposed that the Beringia time capsules contain evidence of technological knowledge that exceeds what conventional archaeology attributes to Paleolithic peoples. The apparent sophistication of some artifacts, including possible evidence of metallurgy and advanced astronomical knowledge, has led to speculation about either unknown indigenous technological development or contact with more advanced civilizations. Cultural preservation theories suggest that the cache sites represent deliberate efforts by ancient peoples to preserve their cultural heritage for future generations. Rather than serving immediate practical purposes, these repositories may have been created as time capsules intended to maintain cultural knowledge, artistic traditions, and technological innovations across periods of environmental or social upheaval. Scientific investigations. Modern analysis of the Beringia time capsules has employed cutting-edge scientific techniques to extract maximum information from these extraordinary archaeological finds, while addressing questions about their authenticity and significance. Advanced radiocarbon dating using accelerator mass spectrometry has been applied to multiple organic samples from each cache site to establish reliable chronologies and detect potential contamination. These studies have consistently confirmed the ancient age of the deposits, while revealing complex patterns of site use that suggest some locations were revisited and restocked over periods spanning several millennia. DNA analysis of organic materials has provided insights into the biological and cultural relationships of the peoples who created these repositories. Ancient DNA extracted from bone tools, clothing fragments, and food remains has revealed genetic signatures that show connections to both Asian and American indigenous populations, but also some unique markers that don't match modern populations. This genetic data suggests that the Beringia time capsule creators may represent previously unknown population groups with complex ancestry. Isotope analysis of bone and tooth samples has revealed detailed information about ancient diets, migration patterns, and environmental conditions. Strontium isotope signatures indicate that some individuals traveled vast distances across different geological regions, supporting theories about extensive migration networks. Carbon and nitrogen isotope ratios show diverse dietary strategies that included both marine and terrestrial resources, suggesting sophisticated understanding of Arctic ecology. High-resolution imaging and three-dimensional scanning have documented artifact construction techniques and use-wear patterns with unprecedented detail. Microscopic analysis has revealed tool-making strategies that demonstrate advanced understanding of material properties and sophisticated manufacturing techniques. Some carved artifacts show evidence of tools and techniques that don't match known Paleolithic technologies. Geological analysis of cache site locations has revealed that ancient peoples possessed sophisticated understanding of permafrost dynamics and landscape stability. Site selection appears to have been based on detailed knowledge of which locations would remain frozen and structurally stable over extended periods. Modern challenges. Contemporary research on the Beringia time capsules faces numerous challenges that reflect both the practical difficulties of Arctic archaeology and complex questions about cultural heritage and scientific interpretation. Climate change poses the most immediate threat to both discovered and undiscovered cache sites. Rising Arctic temperatures are causing permafrost degradation that threatens the preservation conditions that have maintained these archaeological materials for millennia. Many sites are experiencing accelerated thawing that could destroy organic artifacts within decades. Researchers face a race against time to locate and excavate vulnerable sites before their contents are lost to environmental changes. The remote locations of most cache sites present significant logistical challenges for archaeological investigation. Many sites are accessible only during brief summer seasons and require expensive transportation by helicopter or specialized Arctic vehicles. The harsh conditions limit excavation seasons and require specialized equipment and extensive safety protocols. International cooperation challenges have emerged as cache sites span multiple national boundaries, including Russia, the United States, and Canada. Different countries have varying laws regarding archaeological investigation, artifact ownership, and cultural heritage protection. Coordinating research across these boundaries requires complex diplomatic negotiations and shared research agreements. Indigenous rights and cultural sensitivity concerns have become increasingly important as research progresses. Native communities on both sides of the Bering Strait have legitimate interests in materials that may relate to their ancestral heritage. However, the extreme antiquity of the cache sites and their apparent connection to previously unknown populations complicates questions of cultural affiliation. Funding limitations restrict the scope of investigation possible at these remote and expensive research sites. The interdisciplinary nature of Beringia research requires collaboration between archaeologists, geneticists, climate scientists, and other specialists, creating coordination challenges and competing priorities for limited research resources. Scientific skepticism within the archaeological community has created additional challenges for researchers investigating the time capsules. The implications of the discoveries for established migration theories and technological development timelines have led to intense scrutiny of methods, dating results, and interpretations. Closing reflections. As we stand at the edge of the Bering Strait, gazing across waters that once formed a vast bridge between worlds, we are reminded that our understanding of human history remains fundamentally incomplete. The Beringia time capsules represent more than just archaeological curiosities. They challenge our most basic assumptions about when humans first crossed between Asia and the Americas, what capabilities they possessed, and how long they may have been creating sophisticated technologies in Earth's most challenging environments. These frozen repositories have preserved not just artifacts and remains, but glimpses into the lives and knowledge of peoples whose very existence challenges conventional archaeological narratives. The carefully constructed cache sites suggest that their creators understood they were preserving something precious for future discovery, perhaps anticipating that environmental changes would eventually reveal their hidden treasures to new generations of human explorers. The technological sophistication evident in many cache artifacts raises profound questions about the linear progression models that have dominated our understanding of human cultural development. Rather than representing steady advancement from simple to complex technologies, the Beringia discoveries suggest that human ingenuity and adaptation may have followed far more complex patterns, with knowledge gained and lost across cycles of environmental change and population movement. Perhaps most significantly, the time capsules remind us that human migration and cultural exchange may have been far more extensive and sophisticated in prehistoric times than we have imagined. The apparent connections between cache sites across thousands of kilometers suggest communication networks and shared cultural traditions that spanned continents. As climate change continues to alter the Arctic landscape, each melting season brings new possibilities for discovery, while simultaneously threatening the preservation of materials that have survived for tens of thousands of years. The urgency of this situation has transformed Beringia archaeology into a race against time, where researchers struggle to document and preserve evidence of ancient human presence before it disappears forever into the thawing permafrost. What secrets might still lie frozen beneath the permafrost of the ancient land bridge? Could these mysterious repositories hold keys to understanding human migration patterns, technological development, or cultural achievements that predate our current historical understanding by millennia? Share your thoughts about these remarkable discoveries in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The Magnetic Anomaly Islands. Imagine standing on the deck of an icebreaker in the Arctic Ocean, watching your compass needle spin wildly in circles as it struggles to find magnetic north. The GPS system flickers and fails. Radio communications dissolve into static, and electronic equipment throughout the ship begins to malfunction in ways that defy explanation. You are approaching one of the most mysterious locations on Earth, the Magnetic Anomaly Islands, phantom landmasses that appear on Soviet-era naval charts but seem to vanish when modern satellites scan the same coordinates. These enigmatic locations create magnetic disturbances so powerful they can disable navigation systems from dozens of kilometers away. Yet when researchers arrive to investigate, they often find nothing but empty ocean where islands should exist. Historical context. The Arctic Ocean has long been one of Earth's most challenging and mysterious frontiers, where harsh conditions and extreme isolation have created a landscape of legends and unexplained phenomena. For centuries, explorers venturing into these frozen waters reported strange compass behavior, unusual magnetic readings, and sightings of landmasses that seemed to shift or disappear when approached. During the height of the Cold War, the Arctic Ocean became a crucial theater of geopolitical competition between the Soviet Union and Western powers. Both sides deployed submarines, established research stations, and conducted extensive mapping operations in this remote region. The strategic importance of the Arctic led to comprehensive hydrographic and magnetic surveys in polar waters, as military planners sought to understand every navigational hazard and geographic feature that could affect submarine operations. Soviet naval records from the 1950s through the 1980s contain numerous references to small islands and rocky outcrops in the Arctic Ocean that exhibited extraordinary magnetic properties. These features were noted for their ability to interfere with compass navigation, disrupt radio communications, and cause electronic equipment failures. Unlike typical magnetic anomalies caused by iron ore deposits, these disturbances seem to be associated with discrete geographical features that could be approached and mapped, yet often proved elusive when revisited. The most comprehensive documentation came from the Soviet Northern Fleet's Hydrographic Service, which maintained detailed charts of Arctic waters for submarine navigation. Their records describe over a dozen locations where magnetic anomalies coincided with charted islands or underwater features, creating navigation hazards that required special plotting techniques and alternative navigation methods. Indigenous knowledge keepers from Siberian and Alaskan communities have maintained traditions describing sacred places in the Arctic Ocean where spirits create confusion for travelers. These stories speak of islands that appear and disappear with changing seasons, locations where compasses point in wrong directions, and waters where the aurora borealis seems to touch the sea surface. Discovery. The modern investigation of the magnetic anomaly islands began in 1991 when the collapse of the Soviet Union led to the declassification of numerous Arctic research documents and navigational charts. Dr. Magnus Olsen, a Norwegian geophysicist studying historical Arctic exploration records, discovered references to these mysterious islands while reviewing formerly classified Soviet naval archives. Olsen's analysis revealed a pattern of magnetic anomalies that had been systematically documented but never fully investigated due to Cold War secrecy restrictions. The Soviet records indicated at least 15 distinct locations where significant magnetic disturbances coincided with charted geographical features ranging from small rocky islets to larger land masses that appeared on multiple independent surveys. The first modern expedition to investigate these sites was launched in 1994, when a joint Norwegian-Russian research team attempted to relocate and study the most prominent magnetic anomaly documented in the Soviet archives. Using GPS navigation and modern magnetometer equipment, the team approached coordinates approximately 200 kilometers north of the new Siberian islands, where Soviet charts indicated a small island with extreme magnetic properties. The expedition encountered the magnetic anomaly exactly where historical records predicted, with compass readings becoming erratic at a distance of over 30 kilometers from the charted position. As the research vessel approached the coordinates, electronic navigation systems began experiencing interference. Radio communications became unreliable, and the ship's magnetic compass spun freely without settling on any consistent bearing. However, when the team reached the exact coordinates of the supposed island, they found only open ocean with no visible land. Underwater sonar mapping revealed unusual topographical features on the seafloor beneath the magnetic anomaly, including what appeared to be geometric patterns and regular structures that seemed inconsistent with natural geological formations. The most dramatic discovery occurred when the research team deployed a remotely operated underwater vehicle to investigate the seafloor anomalies. At a depth of approximately 150 meters, the ROV's cameras captured images of what appeared to be metallic structures embedded in the ocean floor, including cylindrical objects and angular formations that reflected underwater lights in ways that suggested manufactured materials. Subsequent expeditions to other documented magnetic anomaly sites yielded similar results: powerful magnetic disturbances at precisely charted locations, electronic equipment malfunctions, and evidence of unusual underwater features, but no visible surface islands corresponding to the historical charts. Theories. The mysterious nature of the magnetic anomaly islands has generated numerous competing theories, each attempting to explain how documented geographical features can create powerful magnetic disturbances while remaining invisible to modern detection methods. The most conventional geological theory suggests that the magnetic anomalies are caused by massive iron ore deposits or meteorite impacts on the Arctic Ocean floor that create localized magnetic fields powerful enough to interfere with navigation equipment. According to this hypothesis, The islands documented in Soviet charts may have been misidentified ice formations or temporary land features created by unusual conditions that coincidentally occurred at locations with significant magnetic anomalies. However, this theory struggles to explain the precision with which historical charts documented these features, or the reported ability to approach and map them as discrete geographical entities. The magnetic signatures are also unusually intense and localized compared to typical geological anomalies. A more speculative theory proposes that the magnetic anomaly islands represent the remains of Cold War-era military installations or research facilities that were deliberately concealed beneath the Arctic Ocean. During the Cold War, both Soviet and Western powers conducted classified experiments with magnetic detection systems and submarine detection technologies that might have required powerful electromagnetic equipment. These installations could have been designed to be temporarily raised above the ocean surface for operations, then submerged for concealment. This military theory would explain both the precise documentation in Soviet charts and the powerful magnetic signatures, as well as the geometric patterns detected by underwater surveys. However, the extreme magnetic intensities reported exceed what would be expected from conventional military equipment. Environmental theories focus on the possibility that unique Arctic conditions create temporary geographical features that appear and disappear with seasonal or climatic changes. Some researchers have proposed that massive accumulations of magnetic minerals carried by ocean currents could create temporary underwater mountains, or that unusual ice formation processes might temporarily lift seafloor materials above the ocean surface. Perhaps the most controversial theories venture into speculation about unknown technologies or phenomena that operate beyond our current scientific understanding. Some researchers have suggested that the magnetic anomalies might represent evidence of advanced technologies from unknown sources. These theories attempt to explain the unprecedented magnetic intensities and the apparent ability of these features to affect multiple types of electronic systems simultaneously. Scientific investigations. Modern scientific investigation of the magnetic anomaly islands has employed increasingly sophisticated detection and analysis technologies to understand the nature and origin of these mysterious phenomena. Comprehensive magnetic field mapping using satellite magnetometry and ship-based surveys has revealed that the anomalies create highly localized distortions in Earth's magnetic field that extend vertically through the water column and into the atmosphere above the ocean surface. These distortions are characterized by rapid changes in magnetic intensity over short distances, creating gradient fields that are unusually steep compared to natural geological formations. Advanced sonar mapping techniques have provided detailed images of the seafloor beneath magnetic anomaly sites. These surveys have consistently revealed unusual topographical features that appear too regular and geometric to be natural formations. Some sites show evidence of circular depressions surrounded by raised ridges, while others display linear arrangements of objects that suggest deliberate placement. Underwater archaeology teams have conducted detailed investigations at several anomaly sites using remotely operated vehicles equipped with high-resolution cameras and sample collection equipment. These surveys have recovered metallic fragments that show evidence of artificial manufacturing, including alloys that don't match known natural mineral combinations. However, dating these materials has proven difficult due to the harsh Arctic environment and unusual magnetic properties. Electromagnetic surveys using various frequency ranges have attempted to characterize the electronic properties of the anomaly sources. These studies have revealed that the magnetic disturbances are accompanied by electrical conductivity patterns that suggest the presence of metallic objects or structures with complex internal arrangements. Core sampling and sediment analysis from anomaly sites have provided insights into the age and origin of the unusual features. While most samples show typical Arctic Ocean sediments, some cores contain layers of unusual metallic particles and mineral compositions that don't match regional geological patterns. Modern challenges. Contemporary research into the magnetic anomaly islands faces significant obstacles that reflect both the extreme conditions of Arctic research and complex international politics surrounding these remote ocean areas. Climate change has created both opportunities and challenges for investigating the magnetic anomaly sites. Reduced sea ice coverage has made some locations more accessible to research vessels, but it has also changed ocean current patterns and seafloor conditions in ways that may affect the preservation and stability of underwater features. The remote location of most anomaly sites requires extensive logistical planning and expensive specialized equipment for investigation. Research vessels must be capable of operating in ice-covered waters while carrying sensitive magnetic detection equipment that can be affected by the ship's own magnetic signature. International territorial disputes over Arctic ocean boundaries have complicated scientific access to some magnetic anomaly sites. Several locations fall within disputed territorial waters, requiring complex diplomatic negotiations for research permits. The strategic importance of the Arctic region has made some governments reluctant to allow detailed scientific investigation of unusual phenomena that might have security implications. The extreme magnetic disturbances at anomaly sites create technical challenges for scientific equipment that was not designed to operate in such intense magnetic fields. Standard navigation systems, electronic instruments, and communication equipment often fail when approaching these locations. Safety concerns related to the unpredictable effects of magnetic anomalies on navigation and communication systems have limited the scope of some investigations. The possibility that magnetic disturbances could affect emergency navigation systems requires extensive safety planning and backup procedures. Closing reflections. As we contemplate the vast expanse of the Arctic Ocean, where ice and water stretch endlessly beneath skies that dance with aurora light, we are reminded that our planet still harbors secrets that challenge our understanding of the natural world. The magnetic anomaly islands represent more than just navigation hazards. They embody the persistent mystery of phenomena that operate at the boundaries of our scientific knowledge. These phantom islands speak to fundamental questions about the nature of observation and reality in Earth's most remote places. How can features be precisely documented and repeatedly observed, yet remain invisible to our most advanced detection systems? The question challenges our assumptions about the reliability of historical records and the completeness of modern scientific mapping techniques. The magnetic anomalies remind us that our planet's magnetic field contains complexities and variations that we are only beginning to understand. The extreme magnetic disturbances recorded at these sites suggest that Earth's magnetic environment may be far more dynamic and variable than our current models predict. Perhaps most intriguingly, the geometric patterns and unusual materials detected at anomaly sites hint at the possibility that natural processes or human technology can create features that blur the boundaries between natural and artificial phenomena. Whether these underwater structures represent unknown geological processes, lost technologies, or something else entirely, they remind us that our planet can produce results that exceed our current ability to categorize or explain. In the endless twilight of the Arctic Ocean, where magnetic forces dance invisibly through water and ice, these phantom islands continue their silent existence, neither fully present nor entirely absent, waiting for the right combination of technology, understanding, and perhaps luck to reveal their secrets to human investigation. What do you think could create such powerful magnetic disturbances in some of Earth's most remote waters? Could these phantom islands represent natural phenomena we don't yet understand? Or do they point to something more extraordinary, hidden beneath the Arctic Ocean? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries that our world still cannot fully explain. The Thule culture's advanced navigation. Imagine standing on the sea ice near Baffin Island, watching as a small group of hunters launches their skin boats into the Arctic Ocean with nothing but bone tools, intuition, and knowledge passed down through generations. Yet somehow, these remarkable people traversed thousands of kilometers of the most challenging waters on Earth with precision that modern sailors struggle to achieve even with GPS technology. This is the mystery of the Thule culture, the ancestors of modern Inuit peoples, who between 900 and 1600 CE accomplished one of the most extraordinary migrations in human history. In just a few centuries, they spread from western Alaska across the entire North American Arctic to Greenland, navigating treacherous ice-filled seas and establishing settlements in some of the most remote locations on the planet. Archaeological evidence suggests they possessed navigation techniques so advanced that researchers still cannot fully understand how they achieved such remarkable accuracy. Historical context. The Thule culture emerged around 900 CE in the Bering Sea region of Alaska, representing a revolutionary leap in Arctic maritime technology and navigation capabilities. Unlike their predecessors, the Dorset people who had occupied the Arctic for nearly 2 millennia, the Thule possessed sophisticated watercraft, advanced hunting technologies, and most remarkably, navigation skills that enabled them to traverse the Arctic Ocean with extraordinary precision and speed. The Thule developed the Umiak, a large open boat constructed from driftwood frames covered with walrus or seal hides, capable of carrying entire families across vast distances of open water. These vessels, some reaching lengths of over 10 meters, were engineered for Arctic conditions, with flexible designs that could handle ice impacts and rough seas. Alongside the Umiak, they perfected the kayak, a smaller single-person craft that provided unmatched maneuverability for hunting and reconnaissance. What distinguished the Thule from other Arctic peoples was their systematic approach to long-distance maritime travel and their apparent ability to navigate with remarkable accuracy across featureless ocean expanses. Archaeological evidence shows that within approximately 300 years, Thule populations had established settlements from the Mackenzie River in western Canada to the eastern coast of Greenland, a distance of over 6,000 kilometers across some of the most challenging marine environments on Earth. The speed and extent of Thule expansion puzzled early archaeologists, who struggled to understand how a pre-industrial culture could accomplish such rapid migration across the Arctic Ocean. Traditional explanations focused on population pressure and resource availability, but these factors alone could not account for the precision with which Thule communities located and settled optimal sites across vast distances of unmarked ocean and ice. Early European explorers who encountered Thule descendants were consistently amazed by their navigation abilities. These Arctic peoples could travel directly to specific locations across hundreds of kilometers of open water, find tiny islands invisible from more than a few kilometers away, and navigate safely through constantly changing ice conditions that confused explorers equipped with compasses and maps. Traditional Inuit knowledge keepers maintained that their ancestors possessed detailed mental maps of the Arctic that included not only geographical features, but also complex information about ice conditions, current patterns, weather systems, and seasonal variations. These mental maps were apparently so accurate and comprehensive that they enabled precise navigation across vast distances without written records or mechanical instruments. Discovery. The mystery of Thule navigation capabilities began to emerge in the early 20th century as archaeologists started mapping the extent and timing of Thule cultural expansion across the Arctic. Initial radiocarbon dating revealed that their migration occurred much more rapidly than previously believed, with settlements appearing across the entire Arctic within just a few centuries. Dr. Thurkel Mathiasen, a Danish archaeologist working in the 1922nd, was among the first to recognize the extraordinary nature of Thule expansion. His excavations at sites across the central Arctic revealed remarkably similar artifact styles and construction techniques at locations separated by thousands of kilometers, suggesting rapid cultural transmission and coordinated settlement strategies that required sophisticated navigation networks. The breakthrough moment in understanding Thule navigation came in 1968, when archaeologist Robert McGee discovered a cache of carved ivory artifacts at a Thule site on Somerset Island in the Canadian Arctic. Among these artifacts were several pieces that appeared to function as three-dimensional maps, with carved lines and symbols that corresponded to coastlines, islands, and navigation routes across the Arctic Ocean. These map carvings suggested that the Thule possessed systematic methods for recording and transmitting geographical knowledge. Subsequent discoveries at Thule sites across the Arctic revealed additional evidence of sophisticated navigation systems. Excavations uncovered carved bone implements that appeared to function as navigation instruments, including devices that might have been used for measuring angles relative to celestial objects or calculating distances across water. Some artifacts showed wear patterns consistent with regular use as precision instruments rather than decorative objects. Perhaps most significantly, researchers began to document the remarkable accuracy of Thule site locations. Computer analysis of settlement patterns revealed that Thule communities consistently chose optimal locations for resource access, shelter from prevailing winds, and strategic positioning relative to migration routes. The precision of these choices across vast distances suggested access to detailed geographical knowledge that went far beyond what random exploration could provide. In 1985, ethnographer Claudio Aporta began systematic documentation of traditional Inuit navigation knowledge among elders in Igloolik, Nunavut. His research revealed that Inuit communities maintained extraordinarily detailed mental maps that included information about ice conditions, current patterns, wind directions, and seasonal variations across thousands of square kilometers of Arctic waters. Modern GPS tracking of experienced Inuit hunters has revealed navigation accuracy that approaches the precision of electronic systems. Hunters regularly travel directly to specific locations across hundreds of kilometers of featureless ice and water, arriving within meters of their intended destinations. Theories. The remarkable navigation achievements of the Thule culture have generated numerous theories attempting to explain how pre-industrial peoples could accomplish such sophisticated maritime travel across the challenging Arctic environment. The most accepted academic theory focuses on the integration of multiple environmental cues to create comprehensive navigation systems. According to this hypothesis, the Thule developed techniques for reading ice conditions, ocean swells, wind patterns, celestial positions, and wildlife behavior that provided sufficient information for accurate, long-distance navigation. This multisensory approach could theoretically provide navigation accuracy comparable to modern instruments when applied by individuals with extensive training and experience. Supporting this theory, researchers have documented that experienced Inuit navigators can detect subtle changes in water color that indicate depth variations, identify distant landmasses by observing cloud formations and wind patterns, and use the flight patterns of seabirds to locate feeding areas and polynyas. The combination of these techniques, with knowledge of seasonal ice movements and celestial navigation, could theoretically enable the precision demonstrated by Thule expansion. However, critics argue that even the most sophisticated integration of environmental cues could not account for the speed and accuracy of Thule migration across such vast distances. The theory struggles to explain how navigation knowledge could be transmitted accurately enough to enable coordinated settlement strategies across thousands of kilometers, or how Thule navigators could maintain course accuracy during extended periods of poor visibility. A more controversial theory suggests that the Thule possessed mechanical navigation instruments that have not been preserved in the archaeological record or have not been recognized as such by researchers. Some carved bone and ivory artifacts from Thule sites exhibit geometric patterns and wear characteristics that could indicate use as precision instruments for measuring angles, calculating distances, or determining positions relative to celestial objects. This instrumental theory gains support from historical accounts of sophisticated navigation devices used by Pacific Islander cultures, including stick charts that recorded wave patterns and celestial computers that calculated seasonal variations. The Thule could theoretically have developed similar instruments adapted for Arctic conditions, using materials and designs that might not be immediately recognizable to modern archaeologists. Cultural transmission theories focus on the possibility that Thule navigation knowledge was preserved and transmitted through sophisticated oral traditions that encoded complex geographical and environmental information in memorable formats. Traditional Arctic cultures are known for their ability to preserve detailed knowledge through stories, songs, and ritualized instruction that can maintain accuracy across many generations. Scientific investigations. Modern research into Thule navigation capabilities has employed diverse scientific approaches to understand how these remarkable achievements were possible using available technologies and knowledge systems. Experimental archaeology projects have attempted to replicate Thule navigation techniques using reconstructed traditional methods and instruments. Researchers have built replica umiaks and kayaks using traditional materials and construction techniques, then tested their performance under various Arctic conditions. These studies have confirmed that Thule watercraft designs were remarkably well adapted for Arctic navigation, providing stability, durability, and maneuverability that rival modern boat designs. Navigation experiments using traditional techniques have yielded mixed results. Some researchers have successfully completed long-distance Arctic journeys using only environmental cues and traditional knowledge, demonstrating that such navigation is theoretically possible. However, these experiments typically require extensive preparation, ideal weather conditions, and safety backup systems that would not have been available to original Thule navigators. Computer modeling of Arctic environmental conditions has attempted to map the information available to traditional navigators and assess whether it could support the precision demonstrated by Thule expansion. These studies have revealed that the Arctic environment provides numerous subtle cues that could theoretically support sophisticated navigation, including variations in ice, color, and texture, patterns in ocean swells, and atmospheric phenomena that indicate distant land masses. Cognitive science research has investigated the mental capabilities required for the sophisticated spatial memory and environmental awareness demonstrated by traditional Arctic navigators. Studies of contemporary Inuit hunters have revealed extraordinary abilities in spatial orientation, environmental pattern recognition, and the integration of complex sensory information that significantly exceed typical human performance. GPS tracking studies of traditional hunters have provided objective measurements of navigation accuracy using traditional techniques. These studies consistently demonstrate precision that approaches electronic navigation systems, with hunters regularly arriving within meters of intended destinations across hundreds of kilometers of challenging terrain. Modern challenges. Contemporary efforts to understand and preserve traditional Thule navigation knowledge face numerous challenges that reflect both practical research difficulties and broader cultural changes affecting Arctic communities. Climate change has fundamentally altered the Arctic environment in ways that affect both the preservation of traditional navigation knowledge and the ability to study historical navigation techniques. Changing ice conditions, altered weather patterns, and shifting wildlife distributions have disrupted the environmental cues that traditional navigation methods depend upon. Many of the landmarks, ice formations, and seasonal patterns that guided traditional navigators no longer exist or behave predictably. Cultural disruption and modernization have reduced the number of individuals who possess comprehensive traditional navigation knowledge. The introduction of modern navigation technologies, changes in lifestyle and transportation methods, and disruption of traditional knowledge transmission systems have led to significant loss of traditional navigation expertise within Arctic communities. Many elders who possess traditional navigation knowledge are reluctant to share detailed information with researchers due to concerns about cultural appropriation, misrepresentation, or commercial exploitation of traditional knowledge. Language barriers also present significant challenges, as traditional navigation knowledge is often embedded in indigenous languages that contain specialized vocabulary, difficult to translate accurately. Closing reflections. As we stand at the edge of the Arctic Ocean, where ice and open water stretch endlessly toward horizons that have challenged human navigation for millennia, we are humbled by the achievements of the Thule people, who transformed this harsh landscape into a highway for one of history's most remarkable migrations. Their story reminds us that human ingenuity and adaptation can accomplish feats that seem impossible when viewed through the lens of our technological assumptions. The mystery of Thule navigation capabilities challenges our understanding of what pre-industrial peoples could achieve through the integration of environmental knowledge, cultural transmission, and human skill. Their expansion across the Arctic represents not just a geographical achievement, but a demonstration of sophisticated knowledge systems that operated at levels of precision and complexity that modern science is still working to understand. Perhaps most remarkably, the Thule accomplished their navigation feats without leaving behind the mechanical instruments, written records, or permanent installations that we typically associate with advanced navigation systems. Their achievements were embedded in knowledge, skill, and cultural practices that could be carried in human minds and transmitted through oral traditions, creating navigation capabilities that were both sophisticated and remarkably portable. The legacy of Thule navigation knowledge continues to influence contemporary Arctic communities, where traditional techniques still provide capabilities that complement and sometimes exceed modern electronic systems. As climate change continues to transform the Arctic environment, the traditional navigation knowledge developed by the Thule and their descendants becomes both more fragile and more valuable. The study of Thule navigation also raises profound questions about human potential and the development of specialized skills through cultural transmission and intensive training. The extraordinary capabilities demonstrated by traditional Arctic navigators suggest that human sensory and cognitive abilities can be developed far beyond what we typically consider normal limits, given appropriate knowledge systems and training methods. In the endless expanse of the Arctic, where the auroras dance across star-filled skies, and the ice tells stories of seasonal cycles and environmental change, the spirit of Thule navigation lives on in the knowledge and skills of their descendants. Their achievement stands as a testament to human ingenuity, environmental adaptation, and the power of traditional knowledge to accomplish what seems impossible. What do you think enabled the Thule people to navigate across thousands of kilometers of Arctic waters with such remarkable precision? Could their navigation techniques have incorporated environmental knowledge or human capabilities that we still don't fully understand? The Ice Maiden's Copper Mask. Imagine kneeling beside an ancient burial chamber carved into the frozen earth of the Siberian Altai Mountains, where permafrost has preserved secrets for over 2 millennia. As you carefully brush away ice crystals from a perfectly preserved face, you discover something that shouldn't exist: an intricate copper mask covering the features of a woman who died 2,500 years ago. The mask gleams with a green patina that speaks of incredible age, but it's the symbols etched into its surface that take your breath away. Geometric patterns, celestial markings, and astronomical calculations spiral across the copper in designs that don't match any known ancient calendar system or star chart from her time period. This is the mystery of the Ice Maiden's copper mask, an artifact so sophisticated and enigmatic that it challenges everything we thought we knew about the technological and astronomical knowledge of ancient Central Asian peoples. Historical context. The Ukok Plateau of the Altai Mountains in southern Siberia has long been one of Earth's most remarkable natural preservatories, where temperatures that rarely rise above freezing have created perfect conditions for preserving organic materials across millennia. This remote highland region, sitting at over 2,000 meters above sea level along the borders of Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and China, served as a crossroads for ancient nomadic cultures that traveled the early Silk Road trade routes. During the 5th century BCE, this harsh but strategically important region was home to the Pazyryk culture, a sophisticated nomadic society that represented one of the earliest known Scythian groups in Central Asia. The Pazyryk people were master horsemen and skilled metal workers who developed complex burial traditions that involved constructing elaborate underground chambers filled with grave goods that reflected their beliefs about death and the afterlife. Archaeological evidence suggests that Pazyryk society was highly stratified, with powerful chiefs and spiritual leaders who commanded resources and knowledge that enabled them to commission extraordinary burial monuments. Their culture combined elements of shamanism, astronomical observation, and sophisticated craftsmanship that produced some of the most remarkable artifacts ever discovered in Siberian archaeology. The discovery of preserved Pazyryk burials has revolutionized our understanding of ancient Central Asian cultures, revealing societies that possessed far greater technological sophistication and cultural complexity than previously believed. These nomadic peoples maintained extensive trade networks that connected them with civilizations across Eurasia, from the Greek colonies on the Black Sea to the emerging Chinese dynasties thousands of kilometers to the east. What made Pazyryk culture particularly remarkable was their apparent integration of practical nomadic survival skills with sophisticated astronomical knowledge and spiritual beliefs. Archaeological evidence suggests they possessed detailed understanding of celestial cycles, seasonal patterns, and navigation techniques that enabled them to traverse vast distances across some of the world's most challenging terrain. The Pazyryk people left behind no written records in any language that modern scholars can definitively decode, making their material culture the primary source of information about their beliefs, practices, and knowledge systems. This reliance on archaeological interpretation has created ongoing debates about the extent and nature of their technological and scientific achievements. Discovery. The discovery of the Ice Maiden began in 1993 when Russian archaeologist Dr. Natalia Polosmak led an expedition to investigate Pazyryk burial mounds on the Ukok Plateau. The team was conducting a rescue excavation ahead of planned road construction when they encountered a burial site that had been disturbed by grave robbers in antiquity, but still contained remarkable preserved materials in its lower chambers. Initial excavation revealed a log-lined burial chamber constructed with extraordinary precision and filled with artifacts that demonstrated exceptional craftsmanship. The chamber had been sealed and then covered with stones and earth, creating an environment that, combined with the permafrost, had preserved organic materials with unprecedented fidelity. The breakthrough moment came when the team began carefully excavating the central burial. Encased in a solid block of ice that had formed over the centuries, they discovered the mummified remains of a young woman, approximately 25 years old at the time of her death. Her body had been so perfectly preserved by the ice that her skin, hair, and even tattoos remained visible after 2.5 millennia. But it was the discovery of the copper mask that transformed this remarkable find into one of archaeology's most puzzling mysteries. The mask had been placed directly over the woman's face, conforming perfectly to her features and held in place by leather straps that had also been preserved by the ice. The copper showed signs of deliberate patination and surface treatment that created intricate patterns across its surface. When conservation specialists began the delicate process of cleaning and examining the mask, they discovered that its surface was covered with precisely executed engravings that depicted what appeared to be astronomical observations and calculations. The markings included geometric patterns that seemed to represent celestial movements, numerical sequences that suggested mathematical calculations, and star charts that showed constellation arrangements. However, attempts to correlate these astronomical markings with known ancient calendar systems or star charts from the region yielded puzzling results. The patterns didn't match Greek, Persian, Chinese, or any other known ancient astronomical traditions from the time period. Some of the star positions depicted on the mask seemed to show celestial arrangements that didn't correspond to the sky as it would have appeared 2,500 years ago. Further analysis revealed that the mask had been created using metallurgical techniques that were remarkably sophisticated for its time period. The copper showed evidence of alloying with other metals to create specific properties, and the surface treatment involved chemical processes that required detailed knowledge of metallurgy and chemistry. Theories. The mysterious astronomical markings on the Ice Maiden's copper mask have generated numerous theories attempting to explain how a 2,500-year-old artifact could contain apparently advanced astronomical knowledge that doesn't match contemporary understanding. The most conventional archaeological theory suggests that the mask represents evidence of previously unknown astronomical knowledge within Pazyryk culture that developed through intensive observation of celestial phenomena over many generations. According to this hypothesis, nomadic peoples who traveled vast distances across open terrain would have had exceptional opportunities to observe and record celestial patterns, potentially developing astronomical knowledge that rivaled or exceeded that of sedentary civilizations. This theory proposes that the apparently anomalous star charts on the mask might represent observations made from different geographical locations or during different seasons, creating composite astronomical records that would appear confusing when interpreted from a single observational standpoint. The sophisticated metallurgy and engraving techniques could reflect specialized knowledge that was concentrated among religious or scientific elites within Pazyryk society. However, critics argue that the level of astronomical sophistication suggested by the mask's markings would require not only observation capabilities, but also mathematical and theoretical frameworks that exceed what archaeological evidence suggests was available to nomadic cultures of the period. A more speculative theory suggests that the mask provides evidence of cultural and technological exchange between Pazyryk society and more advanced civilizations that may have possessed superior astronomical knowledge. During the 5th century BCE, the early Silk Road trade networks were beginning to connect distant civilizations, potentially facilitating the transmission of scientific knowledge between cultures separated by vast distances. According to this hypothesis, the mask might represent the work of foreign astronomers or craftsmen who were present in Pazyryk territory, or it could reflect knowledge acquired by Pazyryk travelers who encountered advanced astronomical traditions in distant lands. The apparent discrepancies between the mask's astronomical markings and known ancient systems might result from the integration of different cultural traditions. Some researchers have proposed that the mask's astronomical markings might represent prophetic or mythological content, rather than observational astronomy, suggesting that the patterns reflect religious or cultural beliefs about celestial phenomena rather than actual scientific observations. Perhaps the most controversial theories suggest that the mask provides evidence of astronomical knowledge that originated from unknown sources, whether through contact with technologically advanced cultures that left no other archaeological evidence, or through access to knowledge systems that operated outside conventional understanding of ancient scientific capabilities. Scientific investigations. Modern analysis of the Ice Maiden's copper mask has employed sophisticated scientific techniques to understand both its physical construction and the meaning of its enigmatic astronomical markings. Metallurgical analysis, using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and electron microscopy, has revealed that the mask was created from copper that was deliberately alloyed with small amounts of tin and other metals to achieve specific properties. The composition analysis shows evidence of sophisticated understanding of metallurgy that enabled the creation of a copper alloy with enhanced workability and durability. High-resolution imaging and three-dimensional scanning have documented every marking on the mask's surface with unprecedented detail. Digital analysis has revealed that the engravings were created using multiple techniques, including some that required tools capable of extremely fine precision work. Astronomical analysis of the mask's markings has involved collaboration between archaeologists, astronomers, and historians of science to interpret the apparent star charts and celestial calculations. Computer modeling has attempted to correlate the marked patterns with historical sky positions, taking into account precession, proper motion of stars, and other astronomical factors. However, these studies have consistently failed to find satisfactory matches between the mask's astronomical markings and known celestial phenomena for the time period of its creation. Some patterns seem to show star positions that would have been visible thousands of years before the mask was made, while others appear to depict arrangements that don't correspond to any known astronomical configurations. Chemical analysis of the mask's surface patination has provided insights into the techniques used to create the intricate patterns and markings. Mass spectrometry and other analytical techniques have identified chemical compounds that suggest sophisticated understanding of chemical processes for surface treatment and decoration. Carbon dating of organic materials found in association with the mask has confirmed the artifact's age while raising questions about the source of the astronomical knowledge it contains. Radiocarbon analysis consistently indicates dates around 2,500 years before present, confirming that the mask was created during the Paleolithic period. Modern challenges. Contemporary study of the Ice Maiden's copper mask faces numerous challenges that reflect both the technical difficulties of analyzing ancient artifacts and complex cultural and political issues surrounding the investigation of indigenous cultural heritage. Conservation concerns have emerged as one of the most pressing challenges facing ongoing research. The mask's preservation has been maintained by consistently frozen conditions for over 2 millennia. But exposure to temperature variations and atmospheric conditions during study and display threatens the stability of both the copper and its surface markings. The remote location of the discovery site and the harsh environmental conditions of the Altai Mountains create significant logistical challenges for continued archaeological investigation. Access to the region requires extensive planning and specialized equipment, while the brief summer excavation season limits opportunities for detailed fieldwork. Cultural sensitivity issues have become increasingly important as indigenous communities assert greater control over their cultural heritage and the investigation of ancestral remains. The Altai people and other indigenous groups have expressed concerns about the excavation, study, and display of ancient burials, arguing that such activities may violate traditional beliefs and cultural protocols. The interdisciplinary nature of research required to understand the mask's astronomical content creates coordination challenges between specialists in archaeology, astronomy, metallurgy, and other fields. Each discipline brings different methodologies and interpretive frameworks that must be integrated to develop comprehensive understanding of the artifact's significance. Closing reflections. As we contemplate the enigmatic copper mask that once covered the face of a young woman who died in the remote mountains of Siberia 2,500 years ago, we are confronted with a mystery that challenges our fundamental assumptions about the development and transmission of astronomical knowledge in the ancient world. This remarkable artifact represents more than just exceptional craftsmanship or cultural achievement. It embodies questions about the nature of scientific discovery and the complex pathways through which knowledge travels across time and space. The Ice Maiden's mask reminds us that human curiosity about the cosmos transcends cultural boundaries and historical periods, driving people to observe, record, and interpret celestial phenomena with remarkable dedication and skill. The sophisticated astronomical markings suggest that even in the harsh environment of the Siberian steppes, ancient peoples possessed the motivation and capability to pursue complex scientific investigations. Perhaps most intriguingly, the mask challenges our linear assumptions about the development of astronomical knowledge, suggesting that scientific understanding may have followed far more complex patterns of innovation, transmission, and loss than traditional historical narratives acknowledge. The apparent sophistication of the astronomical content, combined with its failure to match known ancient systems, hints at knowledge traditions that may have developed independently or been transmitted through channels that remain invisible to historical investigation. The mystery deepens when we consider that this remarkable artifact emerged from a nomadic culture that left no written records and whose technological capabilities were supposedly limited by their mobile lifestyle. Yet the mask demonstrates metallurgical skills, mathematical understanding, and astronomical knowledge that rivaled the achievements of contemporary settled civilizations. The preservation of the mask and its bearer in the perpetual ice of the Altai Mountains speaks to the power of environmental conditions to create unexpected windows into the past, revealing aspects of ancient cultures that would otherwise remain completely unknown. The Ice Maiden has become a bridge between worlds, connecting us to a time and place where human achievement flowered in forms that continue to surprise and challenge our understanding. As climate change continues to affect permafrost regions around the world, the urgency of documenting and preserving such remarkable discoveries becomes increasingly apparent. Each melting season brings new possibilities for uncovering evidence of ancient achievements, while simultaneously threatening the preservation of materials that have survived for millennia in frozen conditions. In the quiet halls where the Ice Maiden now rests, her copper mask continues to guard its secrets, while challenging researchers to expand their understanding of what ancient peoples could achieve. The geometric patterns and celestial markings etched into that green patinated surface represent human efforts to comprehend the universe that speak across millennia to our continuing quest to understand our place in the cosmos. What do you think could explain the sophisticated astronomical knowledge preserved in this ancient copper mask? Could it represent evidence of previously unknown scientific traditions among nomadic peoples? Or does it point to cultural exchanges and knowledge transmission networks that operated on scales we have yet to fully understand? The sound beneath the ice. Imagine floating in a research vessel above the deepest reaches of the Arctic Ocean, where miles of ice stretch endlessly in all directions, and the water beneath holds secrets that have remained hidden for millennia. You lower a sensitive hydrophone into the black depths, expecting to hear only the natural symphony of the polar seas, the groaning of shifting ice, the calls of marine mammals, perhaps the distant rumble of geological activity. Instead, your instruments detect something that shouldn't exist in this pristine wilderness, a rhythmic, mechanical pulsing that emanates from somewhere deep beneath the ice sheet. The sound is precise, almost musical in its regularity, yet unlike anything produced by known geological processes or biological phenomena. This is the mystery of the sound beneath the ice, where advanced acoustic monitoring systems have detected mechanical-like rhythms echoing through Arctic waters, creating one of oceanography's most puzzling enigmas. Historical context. The Arctic Ocean has long been Earth's most mysterious and inaccessible body of water, where extreme conditions and permanent ice coverage have created a marine environment largely isolated from human observation. For most of human history, the sounds of the Arctic depths remained completely unknown, hidden beneath ice sheets in waters so remote that few explorers ever attempted to study their acoustic properties. During the early 20th century, advances in underwater acoustic technology revealed that the ocean depths were far from silent. Military research during both World Wars demonstrated that underwater sound could travel vast distances, leading to the development of sophisticated hydrophone networks for monitoring underwater acoustic activity. The Cold War era marked a revolution in underwater acoustic monitoring, as both the United States and Soviet Union deployed extensive networks of listening devices throughout the world's oceans. The Arctic Ocean became a particular focus of this acoustic surveillance, as submarine activities in the region required detailed understanding of natural and artificial sounds. Indigenous peoples of the Arctic have maintained oral traditions describing unusual sounds emanating from beneath the ice. These stories speak of rhythmic drumming from the deep ocean, mechanical-like pulses during certain seasons, and mysterious sounds that marine animals would avoid. While dismissed by early Western explorers as folklore, these accounts often described acoustic phenomena that align well with modern scientific observations. Discovery. The systematic discovery of anomalous acoustic phenomena in the Arctic Ocean began in 1997, when Dr. Christopher Reynolds, a marine acoustics researcher at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, was analyzing archived recordings from a Cold War-era hydrophone array that had been declassified for scientific research. Reynolds was conducting a study of natural Arctic Ocean acoustics when he encountered recordings that contained sounds unlike anything in the established scientific literature. The initial recordings were detected at a monitoring station 400 kilometers north of the Alaskan coast, where hydrophones had been deployed at depths over 1,000 meters beneath the Arctic ice. The sounds appeared as rhythmic pulses at regular 17-second intervals, each lasting 3 to 5 seconds, with acoustic characteristics suggesting mechanical rather than biological or geological origins. What made these recordings particularly intriguing was their consistency and apparent artificial precision. Unlike natural ocean sounds, which typically show variation in timing, frequency, and amplitude, the anomalous pulses maintained remarkably stable characteristics over extended periods. Computer analysis revealed that the timing variations between pulses fell within tolerances typically associated with mechanical systems rather than natural phenomena. Reynolds shared his findings with colleagues at multiple oceanographic institutions, leading to the formation of a research network dedicated to investigating Arctic acoustic anomalies. As researchers examined archived recordings from other monitoring stations, they discovered that similar sounds had been detected at multiple locations across the Arctic Ocean. The breakthrough moment came in 2003, when real-time monitoring systems detected coordinated acoustic activity at multiple locations simultaneously. Hydrophones, separated by hundreds of kilometers, recorded similar rhythmic pulses occurring at the same time, suggesting that the sounds originated from connected sources or represented responses to common stimuli across vast distances. Advanced signal processing revealed that the anomalous sounds contained complex harmonic structures that suggested sophisticated acoustic engineering. Frequency analysis showed that the pulses contained multiple tonal components arranged in patterns that resembled artificial signal structures rather than natural acoustic phenomena. Perhaps most remarkably, some acoustic monitoring stations began detecting what appeared to be responsive behavior in the anomalous sound. When research vessels approached areas of known acoustic activity, the rhythmic pulses sometimes changed in frequency or intensity, suggesting that whatever produced these sounds might be capable of detecting and responding to human presence. Theories. The discovery of rhythmic, mechanical-like sounds emanating from beneath the Arctic ice has generated numerous theories attempting to explain phenomena that don't match any known natural or artificial sources. The most conservative scientific theory suggests that the acoustic anomalies result from previously unknown geological processes occurring on the Arctic Ocean floor. According to this hypothesis, unique combinations of geological features, ocean currents, and ice pressure could create conditions that produce rhythmic sounds through natural mechanical processes. Underwater geological formations could theoretically act as resonating chambers that amplify and regularize natural acoustic phenomena. However, critics point out that known geological processes typically produce acoustic signatures that are more variable and less precisely timed than the observed anomalies. The harmonic complexity and apparent information content of some recordings exceed what would be expected from purely mechanical geological phenomena. A more speculative theory focuses on the possibility that the sounds originate from biological sources that represent previously unknown forms of Arctic marine life. Deep ocean environments contain numerous species that remain undiscovered by science, and the extreme conditions of the Arctic Ocean could potentially support unique life forms with sophisticated acoustic capabilities that evolved in isolation. According to this biological theory, the rhythmic pulses could represent communication systems used by large marine organisms that inhabit the deepest areas of the Arctic Ocean. The apparent precision and complexity of the sounds might reflect highly evolved acoustic communication systems that enable coordination between individual organisms across vast distances. A controversial theory suggests that the acoustic anomalies provide evidence of artificial systems operating beneath the Arctic ice, whether from unknown human technology or sources that operate outside conventional understanding. During the Cold War, both superpowers conducted classified underwater research projects that might have involved experimental acoustic systems or monitoring devices that continue to operate decades after their installation. This artificial source theory proposes that the rhythmic pulses could originate from abandoned military installations, experimental communication systems, or automated monitoring devices designed to operate autonomously for extended periods. The apparent responsiveness of some acoustic sources to human presence could reflect sophisticated sensor systems that remain functional despite their age. Scientific investigations. Modern investigation of the Arctic acoustic anomalies has employed sophisticated technologies and analytical techniques to understand the nature and origin of these mysterious sounds. Advanced hydrophone arrays have been deployed specifically to study the acoustic anomalies, using networks of sensitive listening devices that can triangulate sound sources and provide detailed information about acoustic events. These specialized monitoring systems employ digital signal processing capabilities that can analyze sounds in real time and detect patterns invisible to conventional recording equipment. Three-dimensional acoustic mapping has revealed that the anomalous sounds originate from specific locations on the Arctic Ocean floor, often associated with underwater geological features such as ridges, valleys, or areas of unusual topography. Bathymetric surveys have revealed complex underwater landscapes that could potentially explain some aspects of the sound production, though the precise mechanisms remain unclear. Frequency analysis using sophisticated spectroscopic techniques has revealed that the acoustic anomalies contain harmonic structures that suggest complex resonance systems. Some recordings show evidence of multiple frequency components that interact in ways that could indicate either natural acoustic resonance or artificial signal processing. Underwater exploration using remotely operated vehicles has been attempted at several acoustic source locations, though the extreme conditions of the Arctic Ocean and the depth of many source sites have limited the scope of these investigations. Some underwater surveys have revealed unusual geological formations that could potentially contribute to acoustic phenomena, but no clear evidence of artificial structures or unknown biological sources has been definitively identified. Modern challenges. Contemporary research into Arctic acoustic anomalies faces obstacles reflecting both the technical challenges of working in extreme polar environments and the complexity of analyzing phenomena that don't fit established scientific categories. Climate change has significantly altered the Arctic Ocean environment in ways that affect both the production and detection of underwater sounds. Changing ice conditions, altered ocean current patterns, and shifts in marine ecosystems could influence acoustic phenomena while making it difficult to establish baseline conditions. The extreme remote location and harsh conditions of the Arctic Ocean create significant logistical challenges for acoustic research. Deploying and maintaining sensitive monitoring equipment in ice-covered waters requires specialized vessels and extensive safety protocols that dramatically increase research costs. International territorial disputes and security concerns have complicated scientific access to some areas where acoustic anomalies have been detected. Portions of the Arctic Ocean fall within disputed territorial waters or are considered strategically sensitive by various governments. Technical limitations of current acoustic monitoring technology create challenges for detecting and analyzing sounds that may operate at frequencies, intensities, or temporal scales that exceed the capabilities of available equipment. Closing reflections. As we float above the vast expanse of the Arctic Ocean, where endless sheets of ice conceal depths that remain largely unexplored, we are reminded that our planet continues to harbor phenomena that challenge our understanding of the natural world. The rhythmic pulses echoing through these frozen waters represent more than just an acoustic curiosity. They embody questions about the limits of our knowledge and the possibility that Earth's most remote regions still contain secrets that operate outside our current scientific frameworks. The sound beneath the ice speaks to the profound mystery of what lies hidden in the deep places of our world, where extreme conditions and isolation have created environments that remain largely beyond human observation. These acoustic anomalies remind us that the ocean depths, particularly in polar regions, represent frontier territories where new discoveries might challenge fundamental assumptions about biological diversity, geological processes, or even the nature of natural phenomena itself. Perhaps most intriguingly, the mechanical precision and apparent complexity of these sounds suggest that the boundaries between natural and artificial phenomena may be less clear than we typically assume. Whether produced by unknown biological systems, novel geological processes, or something else entirely, the acoustic anomalies demonstrate that our planet possesses capabilities for generating sophisticated patterns and signals that exceed our current ability to categorize or explain. The apparent responsiveness of some acoustic sources to human presence raises profound questions about the nature of awareness and interaction in Earth's most remote environments. Could these sounds represent forms of communication or sensing that operate through mechanisms we don't yet understand? As climate change continues to transform the Arctic Ocean, the acoustic landscape of these polar waters faces unprecedented alterations that could either reveal new information about the mysterious sounds or alter the conditions that produce them. The race to understand these phenomena before environmental changes modify or eliminate them adds urgency to research efforts. In the silence of the Arctic wilderness, where human technology strains to detect and understand sounds that echo through waters that have remained largely unchanged for millennia, these mysterious pulses continue their rhythmic existence. They serve as acoustic ambassadors from unknown sources, carrying information about processes and phenomena that remain tantalizingly beyond our current comprehension. The sound beneath the ice ultimately reminds us that mystery and wonder still exist in our modern world, even in regions that satellite imagery and advanced technology have made accessible to human observation. These acoustic phenomena represent invitations to expand our understanding while acknowledging the humbling reality that Earth still possesses secrets that may require entirely new ways of thinking to comprehend. What do you think could be creating these precise, mechanical-like sounds in one of Earth's most remote environments? Could they represent evidence of unknown natural phenomena? Or do they point to something more extraordinary, echoing through the depths of our planet's most mysterious ocean?